My name is Jasmine, and I am 34 years old. At our family Christmas party last night, my mother-in-law Francine looked at my 7-year-old daughter and said, "Children from mommy's cheating do not get to call me grandma." This happened right after she threw my daughter's handmade gift onto the floor in front of 20 guests. My husband Tyson just stood there and looked at his shoes. But my 10-year-old son Elijah did not look down. He stood up on a chair and asked his grandmother a question that made the entire room go dead silent. "If Zara is not your family, then why does the money for your heart medication come out of my mother's bank account every single month?" Francine turned purple and slapped my son across the face. That was the moment the party ended, and that was the moment I decided to destroy them. Before I tell you how I used my secret forensic accounting firm to buy their debt and evict them from the very mansion we were standing in, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And if you have ever had to protect your children from toxic in-laws, hit that like button and subscribe. You are going to want to see how this ends. The silence in the Mercedes on the ride home was heavy enough to choke on. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. In the rearview mirror, I could see Elijah holding an ice pack to his cheek while Zara slept fitfully with her head on his lap. I was waiting for an apology. I was waiting for my husband Tyson to say he was sorry he let his mother abuse our children. I was waiting for him to be a father. Instead, he let out a loud, exasperated sigh and punched the dashboard. "Great job, Jasmine." He shouted, his voice filling the car. "Just great. Are you happy now? You and Elijah just humiliated me in front of Dante and his investors. Do you have any idea how bad this looks for the family image?" I kept my eyes on the road. The streetlights of Atlanta flickered past us. I did not trust myself to speak. "Humiliated you," I finally whispered. "Your mother called our daughter a bastard. She slapped our son. She was stressed." Tyson snapped back. "You know how she gets when she is hosting, and Elijah was being disrespectful. Who teaches a 10-year-old to talk about money like that? It is vulgar. You are turning them against my family." He looked at me with pure disdain. He saw a tired wife in a department store dress driving a 3-year-old car. He saw a mid-level accountant who balanced books for small businesses. He had no idea who he was actually sitting next to. He did not know that Obsidian Financial, the firm that had just uncovered a $50 million corporate fraud scheme in Chicago, belonged to me. He did not know that the $2 million commission from that case had hit my secret account that very morning. "We have to fix this," Tyson said, pulling out his phone. "I need to smooth things over with Dante. He is furious. His partners were asking questions about the house." He turned to me, his voice taking on that wheedling, demanding tone I had grown to hate. "You are going to have to apologize, Jasmine, tomorrow morning. We are going over there with flowers and a gift, and I need you to transfer $10,000 from the joint savings account." I nearly slammed on the brakes. $10,000. "Yes, 10,000, he said as if it were $5. "Mom needs a new catering deposit for her charity gala next week. It is the only way to get back in her good graces after the stunt your son pulled. Consider it a peace offering." I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was asking me to drain our emergency fund money I told him took me 2 years to save to pay the woman who just slapped his child. He thought he was squeezing a struggling accountant. He did not know he was trying to blackmail a shark. I drove the rest of the way in silence. I did not tell him no. I did not scream. I just pulled into the driveway of the house that I secretly paid the mortgage on. I unlocked my phone and sent a single text message to my private attorney. It read, "Start the audit. I want to buy every single debt they have." Tyson got out of the car, slamming the door. He thought he had won. He thought I was broken. He had no idea that by tomorrow morning I would own him. The streetlights of Buckhead blurred into long streaks of orange and white as Tyson took the corner too fast. The tires of our leased Mercedes screeched against the asphalt, but he did not slow down. His hands were gripping the leather steering wheel so tightly that the leather creaked under the pressure. In the back seat, Elijah was holding a bag of frozen peas against his cheek, and Zara was curled into a ball, her head resting on her brother's lap. They were silent. They had learned a long time ago that when their father was in this mood, silence was the only shield they had. I sat in the passenger seat and stared out the window. My reflection ghosted against the glass. I looked calm. I looked like the dutiful wife who was listening to her husband vent. Inside, I was running a mental spreadsheet of every single asset Tyson and his mother owned. I was calculating interest rates. I was estimating liquidation values. I was not listening to him. I was auditing him. "You are quiet." Tyson spat the words out like they were poison. "You are sitting there with that look on your face like you are the victim here. You are not the victim, Jasmine. You are the parent, and you failed." He hit the steering wheel with the palm of his hand, making the kids jump in the back. "Did you see Dante face? Did you see the look on Mr. Sterling face? Dante was about to close a seed round with those investors. He has been working on this crypto project for 6 months. He needed tonight to go perfectly. And then your son decides to play hero and accuse my mother of theft in front of half of Atlanta." My son. When Elijah won the spelling bee, he was Tyson's son. When Elijah stood up to a bully, he was Tyson's boy. But tonight, after Francine slapped him for speaking the truth, he was my son. He was defending his sister. I said, my voice low and even, "Your mother rejected Zara's gift. She called her a bastard. She was making a point." Tyson shouted, cutting me off. "She is old school. She cares about bloodlines. And frankly, Jasmine, maybe if you had not been so secretive about your past, we would not have these questions. But that is not the point. The point is respect. You let a 10-year-old boy talk about finances. Vulgar. Disgusting. Who told him about the medication payments? Did you show him the bank statements? Are you trying to turn my children against their grandmother?" I did not answer. I did not need to. Elijah knew because Elijah was smart. He noticed things. He noticed that his grandmother drove a Bentley, but asked his father for gas money. He noticed that Uncle Dante wore Rolex watches, but slept on our couch for weeks at a time. And he noticed that every month I sat at the kitchen table paying bills until midnight. Tyson glanced at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of contempt and pity. He shook his head. "You just do not get it, do you? You live in your little small world. You go to your little cubicle at that tax firm, and you file your little forms, and you come home. You do not understand how the real world works. You do not understand business. Reputation is everything, Jasmine. And tonight, you let your son torch ours." I almost laughed. It would have been a cold, dark sound. He thought I was a mid-level compliance officer. He thought I made $45,000 a year checking receipts for local bakeries and dry cleaners. He liked it that way. It made him feel big. It made him feel like the provider, even though his restaurant had not turned a profit in 3 years. He had no idea who was actually sitting in this car. He did not know that Obsidian Financial was not a small tax firm. It was a forensic accounting consultancy that specialized in high-stakes corporate fraud. He did not know that for the past 6 months, I had been the lead investigator on a $50 million embezzlement case involving a major Chicago logistics company. He did not know that I had personally uncovered the shell companies, the offshore accounts, and the fake vendor lists. And he certainly did not know that the $2 million performance bonus for closing that case had been wired to my private offshore account at 9 o'clock this morning. He saw a mouse. He did not know he was locked in a cage with a cobra. "We have to fix this," Tyson said, his voice dropping to a demanding whine. "I need to smooth things over with Dante. He is furious. He says the investors are spooked. They think our family is unstable." He merged onto the highway, the city skyline shrinking behind us. "We are going back there tomorrow. First thing in the morning. We are going to apologize. You are going to make Elijah apologize to his grandmother for his disrespect. And we are not going empty-handed." I turned my head slowly to look at him. "Apologize." "Yes, apologize," he snapped. "And we need a peace offering. A big one. Mom has her Elite Heritage Charity Gala next weekend. She was complaining that the catering budget was short because some donors pulled out. We are going to cover it." He took a breath, preparing himself to deliver the command. "I need you to transfer $10,000 from the joint savings account to my checking. Tonight, I will write her a check in the morning when we get there. It will show her we are serious. It will show her we support her vision. $10,000. The air in the car seemed to freeze. That joint savings account was my designated trap. For 5 years, I had put 50% of my fake salary into that account. I told Tyson it was for the kids' college fund. I told him it was our safety net. In reality, it was the only money he knew about, and he raided it constantly. For his car payments, for his restaurant renovations, for Dante's bail money that one time in Miami. And now he wanted to drain what was left of it to pay for a party for the woman who had just slapped his son. He glanced at me, waiting for the argument, waiting for me to say we could not afford it, waiting for me to beg him to be reasonable so he could enjoy the power of overruling me. He loved that. He loved telling me to stop being cheap. He loved telling me to see the big picture. $10,000. I repeated, my voice flat. That is everything in that account, Tyson. That is the emergency fund. This is an emergency. He shouted, slamming his hand on the dashboard again. My family is falling apart, Jasmine. My brother is losing investors. My mother is humiliated. If giving her 10 grand fixes the relationship, then it is a cheap price to pay. Do not be selfish. Do not be small. Just do the transfer. He looked at me with such arrogance. He really believed he was the captain of this ship. He really believed he was making an executive decision. I looked at his profile, the weak chin he tried to hide with a beard, the expensive watch I bought him for our anniversary, the suit he insisted on wearing to look successful while his business bled money. I looked at him and I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no anger, just the cold, clinical detachment of an auditor looking at a bad investment. Okay, I whispered. He blinked, surprised by my surrender. He let out a breath, a puff of victorious air. Good, he said, relaxing into his seat. Good. I knew you would understand. It is for the family. You will see. This will fix everything. He turned up the radio, humming along to a song, oblivious. He thought he had bullied his mousy wife into submission. He thought he had squeezed the last drop of blood from the stone. He did not know that by demanding that $10,000 he had just signed his own financial death warrant. He did not know that I wasn't submitting. I was simply moving the pawns. I reached into my purse and touched my phone. I didn't open the banking app to transfer the money to him. Not yet. Instead, I unlocked the screen and opened a secure, encrypted messaging app. I found the contact labeled Sterling. I typed a single line. Execute the purchase. I hit send. We pulled into the driveway of the house he thought he owned, the house he thought his mother had helped us with. He put the car in park and turned to me, a smug, satisfied smile on his face. Do not forget the transfer, he said. Tonight, Jasmine. Or do not bother coming downstairs tomorrow. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had just sold his wife and children out for a catering deposit. I will take care of it, I said. And I meant it. I was going to take care of everything. I was already awake at 6 a.m, sitting at my kitchen island with a cup of black coffee and my laptop open. The sun had not even risen over the Atlanta skyline yet, but the global markets were open, and so was Obsidian Financial. On my screen was a complex web of shell companies and hidden assets belonging to a corrupt pharmaceutical executive in Miami. I was about to freeze his accounts, but my focus was split. In a separate window running in the background, I had the credit report of my mother-in-law, Francine, and her favorite daughter-in-law, Sarah. I was looking at the numbers. They were ugly. Francine was 3 months behind on the mortgage for the mansion she loved to show off, the very mansion where she had slapped my son. Sarah, the woman who called herself a life coach and posted photos of her perfect life on Instagram, was drowning. She had maxed out 4 credit cards. Her total unsecured debt was sitting at $42,000, and her credit score was a tragic 520. They were broke. They were living on fumes and appearances, and they were coming for me. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. It was not a polite ring. It was a long, demanding press that echoed through the house. I did not move. I heard Tyson shuffle down the hallway from the bedroom. He was still in his pajamas, looking disheveled and hungover from the stress of the night before. I heard him open the door. I heard the high-pitched fake greeting of Sarah and the imperious thud of Francine Kane hitting the floor entry. They marched into my kitchen without being invited. They did not take off their shoes. Francine was wearing a Chanel suit that I knew was vintage because she had not bought a new piece of designer clothing in 5 years. Her face was set in a mask of grim determination. Sarah trailed behind her wearing oversized sunglasses and clutching a venti latte from Starbucks. She looked around my kitchen with a sneer curling her lip. My kitchen was clean, it was modern, it was functional. But it was not opulent. We had bought this house 3 years ago. It was a modest 4-bedroom in a good school district. Tyson hated it. He wanted the Buckhead estate. He did not know that I had paid for this house in cash using a dividend check from a tech startup I helped audit. To him, we were paying a mortgage. To me, we were living rent-free. Sarah ran a finger along the granite countertop. "It is so quaint in here, Jasmine," she said, her voice dripping with that special kind of condescension she reserved for me. "It is so small. I do not know how you do it, living on top of each other like this." She looked at my sofa in the living room, visible from the open-plan kitchen. "Is that from a discount store? It looks like microfiber. God, I could never." Dante and I are looking at Italian leather for the new place. You know, quality is an investment. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had $40,000 in credit card debt. I looked at the woman who was currently 2 months late on her leased Range Rover payments. She was lecturing me on investment. "It is durable, Sarah," I said, my voice calm. "It is good for kids." "Kids!" Francine spat the word out. She walked to the island and slammed her handbag down next to my laptop. I quickly minimized the window showing her bankruptcy risk assessment. "We are not here to talk about furniture," Francine said. "We are here to talk about the stain on this family." Tyson walked into the kitchen, rubbing the back of his neck. He would not look at me. He went to the coffee maker and poured himself a cup, ignoring the tension in the room. He was letting them do this. He was letting them ambush his wife in her own home before breakfast. "Sit down, Jasmine," Francine commanded. I did not sit. I took a sip of my coffee and remained standing. "I am comfortable, Francine. What do you want?" Francine narrowed her eyes. She did not like resistance. She was used to people cowering. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. It was heavy legal bond paper. She slid it across the island toward me. It stopped right next to my coffee mug. "Open it," she said. I opened it. I scanned the document. It was a legal demand for a paternity test, a court-ordered DNA analysis for my 7-year-old daughter, Zara. It cited reasonable doubt and family medical history discrepancies as the cause. It was garbage. Legally, it was weak. But socially, it was a nuclear bomb. "We are going to settle this once and for all," Francine said, her voice shaking with self-righteous fury. "I will not have a bastard child inheriting the elite heritage legacy. I will not have my son raising another man's mistake." I looked at Tyson. He was stirring sugar into his coffee, intently studying the swirling dark liquid. "You agree with this?" I asked him. "You think Zara is not yours?" He shrugged one shoulder. "It is just a test, Jasmine. If you have nothing to hide, why are you so upset? Mom just wants to be sure. For the records." "For the records." I looked back at Francine. "And if I refuse?" I asked. Francine smiled. It was a cold, predatory smile. She thought she had me checkmated. "If you refuse, Jasmine, then I will have to make some calls. You work at that little accounting firm downtown, right? What is it called?" "Miller and Associates." She did not wait for an answer. "I know the senior partner there. Mr. Miller serves on the board of my charity. We have known each other for decades. He is a man of high moral standing. He does not like scandal." She leaned forward, bracing her hands on the counter. "If you do not sign that paper and bring that girl to the clinic by noon today, I will call him. I will tell him that his employee is a woman of loose morals who is trapping a prominent family with a fraudulent pregnancy. I will tell him about the scene your son caused. I will tell him you are unstable." Sarah giggled from the corner. She was scrolling on her phone, taking a selfie with my kitchen, as the background probably captioning it with something about helping the less fortunate. "She will do it, Jasmine," Sarah chirped. "Francine knows everyone in this town. You will be blacklisted. You will never get another job in finance. You will be back to filing taxes at a kiosk in the mall." I stared at them. The absurdity of the threat was almost enough to make me laugh. Francine thought she could get me fired. She thought I worked for Miller and Associates. I did work there once 7 years ago as a junior associate. That was where I met the contacts that helped me launch Obsidian Financial. But I had not been an employee for half a decade. In fact, 2 years ago, I had been the one to quietly advise Mr. Miller to sell his firm before his partner was indicted for insider trading. Francine was threatening the owner of the chessboard with a pawn she did not even control. But I could not let them know that. Not yet. If they knew I had power, they would run. They would hide their assets. They would lawyer up. I needed them arrogant. I needed them to think I was cornered. I let my shoulders slump. I let a look of fear creep into my eyes. I looked at Tyson pleadingly. Tyson, please. My job. We need that income. The mortgage. Tyson sipped his coffee. Then sign the paper, Jasmine. Do what Mom says. Stop being difficult. I looked down at the document. I picked up a pen from the counter. My hand trembled slightly. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I will do it. I will take her today. Francine let out a sharp exhale of triumph. She snatched the paper back after I signed the consent form. Good, she said. We will meet you at the clinic at 12. Sarah will come with you to ensure there is no funny business. No switching samples. Me. Sarah complained, looking up from her phone. Ugh, fine. But I have a nail appointment at 2, so we have to be fast. She walked over to the island to look at the paper. She set her phone down on the counter right next to my laptop. It was a brand new iPhone, the latest model without a case. Sarah has always been careless with her technology. She trusts the world too much. She thinks her passcode 1234 is security. I need some water, Sarah said, looking at me expectantly. All this drama makes me thirsty. I nodded. Sure. I will get you a glass. I turned to the sink. Tyson was still staring into his coffee. Francine was busy putting the document back into her bag, gloating to herself. Sarah was inspecting her cuticles. No one was looking at the island. I moved fast. My hand slid over my laptop keyboard. I had a program running in the background, a proprietary software my firm used for digital forensics. It was designed to clone phone data via near-field communication if the device was in close proximity. I slid Sarah's phone 2 inches to the left until it touched the edge of my laptop. I tapped a single key. The progress bar on my screen flashed blue. 0%, 20%. 50%. Here is your water, I said, turning around with a glass. I kept my body between Sarah and the counter. Sarah reached for the glass. Thank you, she said dismissively. The bar hit 100%. Done. I had it. I had everything. Her texts, her emails, her location history, her deleted photos. The payload was injected. I now had a mirror of her digital life on my secure server. I stepped aside. Sarah picked up her phone and frowned. Weird, she said. It just got really hot. Probably the poor signal in here, I said. We have cheap Wi-Fi, remember? Sarah rolled her eyes. Right, cheap. Francine clapped her hands. All right, we are done here. Noon, Jasmine. Do not be late. And dress that child in something decent. We might see people we know. They swept out of the kitchen the way they had come, a hurricane of perfume and toxicity. Tyson followed them out like a loyal dog. I heard the front door close. I heard the engine of Francine's old Bentley start up in the driveway. I stood alone in my kitchen. The silence was heavy. I looked at the empty spot where the document had been. They thought they had won. They thought they had humiliated me. They thought they had put the help back in her place. I sat back down at my laptop. I opened the new folder labeled Sarah Extraction. I started scrolling. It took me less than 3 minutes to find the gold. It was a text thread, not with Dante, her husband, but with a contact saved as Big T. I opened the thread. Text from Sarah. She bought it. The idiot is going to do the test. Text from Big T. Good. Once the results come back, we can move to phase 2. Text from Sarah. Are you sure the lab is set? Francine said she paid the guy, but you know how she is. Text from Big T. The lab is handled, I told you. The results will say negative. I switched the labels myself. Text from Sarah. I cannot wait to see her face. And then we get the house right. Text from Big T. We get everything. The house, the custody, the insurance money. Just stick to the plan. Love you. I froze. I stared at the contact Big T. I clicked on the info icon to see the number. It was not a random number. I knew those digits by heart. I had dialed them every day for 10 years. Big T was Tyson, my husband. My husband was texting his brother's wife. My husband was plotting with his sister-in-law to fake a paternity test for his own daughter. My husband was sleeping with Sarah. I scrolled up. There were photos. Explicit photos. Photos taken in this house. Photos taken in my bed when I was at work. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me so violent I had to grip the edge of the counter. The room spun. Tyson. The man who had just stood in my kitchen and told me to sign the paper. The man who said, "Mom just wants to be sure." He was the architect. He wasn't just a coward. He was a monster. He was having an affair with his brother's wife, and they were conspiring to frame me to take my children and to steal the house he thought I was struggling to pay for. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. I opened my eyes. The nausea was gone. The shock was gone. In its place was a cold, dark void. It was the same void I felt when I audited a company that had stolen pension funds from retirees. It was the absence of mercy. I picked up my phone. I dialed a number that was not in my contacts but was memorized in my brain. "Sterling," I said when he answered. "Jasmine." His voice was gravel and steel. "It is early. Do we have a problem?" "No," I said. "We have an opportunity." I watched the Bentley back out of my driveway through the window. "I want you to expedite the purchase of the debt," I said, "specifically the mortgage on the Buckhead estate, and Sterling. Yes, I want you to look into a shell company called Elite Heritage, Francine's charity. I have a feeling we are going to find some very interesting discrepancies in their ledger." "Consider it done," he said. "Anything else?" "Yes." I said, looking at the photos on my screen one more time. "Get a private investigator on Tyson and Sarah. I want 4K video. I want dates. I want times. I want to know what they eat for breakfast and what they whisper in the dark." I hung up the phone. I stood up and walked to the sink. I poured the rest of my coffee down the drain. They wanted a DNA test. I would give them a DNA test, but it would not be the one they paid for, and it would not be the only thing I revealed. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Francine's 60th birthday gala was in 5 days. 5 days. That was enough time. That was enough time to build a coffin for the entire family. I walked upstairs to get my daughter ready for school. I had to pick out a dress for her, something decent, something perfect for the daughter of a queen who was about to go to war. It was 2 a.m. when the motion sensor on my phone vibrated against the nightstand. The house was silent, wrapped in the heavy, suffocating quiet that comes before a storm. I did not move. I did not roll over. I kept my breathing even and slow, pretending to be asleep, while my mind raced at 1,000 miles an hour. Tyson was sliding out of bed. I watched him through my eyelashes. He moved with a stealth I did not know he possessed. He crept across the room, stepping carefully over the creaky floorboard near the door. He was wearing his silk pajamas, the ones I had bought him for his birthday, the ones he claimed made him feel like a king. He looked down at me for a split second. There was no affection in his gaze. There was only calculation. He slipped out into the hallway and pulled the door almost shut, leaving just a sliver of light. I waited 5 seconds. Then I reached under my pillow and pulled out my phone. I did not need to follow him. I had eyes everywhere. I opened the app connected to the hidden camera inside the hallway smoke detector. The feed was crisp and clear in night vision mode. Tyson was standing outside our daughter Zara's bedroom door. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the knob. Then he pushed it open and disappeared inside. My blood ran cold. The protective instinct of a mother roared to life in my chest, demanding that I run in there and tear him apart. But the forensic accountant in me, the woman who brought down cartels and corrupt CEOs, told me to wait. I needed to see the crime. I needed the evidence. I switched the camera feed to the one disguised as a teddy bear on Zara's bookshelf. On the screen, I saw my husband standing over our sleeping 7-year-old daughter. She was curled up with her favorite blanket, her breathing soft and rhythmic. Tyson reached out. He did not stroke her hair. He did not kiss her forehead. He picked up her hairbrush from the nightstand. He pulled a small Ziploc bag from his pocket. I watched in high-definition horror as he plucked strands of hair from the bristles and shoved them into the bag. He was stealing genetic material from his own child to frame his wife. He sealed the bag and shoved it into his pocket. He put the brush back exactly where it was. Then he turned and walked out. He did not go back to bed. He went downstairs to the garage. I switched feeds again. The garage camera picked up audio. He was pacing back and forth between his leased Mercedes and my paid-off SUV. He had his phone to his ear. "Pick up Dante," he hissed. "Pick up." A moment later, he stopped pacing. "Yeah, it is done," he said, his voice echoing slightly off the concrete floor. "I got the sample." "No, she is asleep. She has no idea." I turned the volume up on my phone, pressing it to my ear. "Mom is going to take it to the lab first thing in the morning," Tyson said. He sounded excited. He sounded relieved. "Yeah, I know the guy at the lab is on payroll. It does not matter what the DNA actually says, Dante. The report is going to say negative. That is the whole point." He laughed. It was a short, ugly sound. "Listen to me. Once that piece of paper says Zara is not mine, I am in the clear. I can file for divorce on the grounds of paternity fraud. Do you know what that means? It means I do not have to split the assets. I do not have to pay alimony. I do not have to pay child support. I can kick her out of the house and keep everything." He paused, listening to his brother. "No, she will not fight it. She does not have the money for a lawyer, Dante. She is making 40 grand a year filing taxes. She will be so ashamed she will probably just move back to her mom's trailer." I lay in my bed in the dark and listened to my husband plan my destruction. He wanted to keep the assets. He meant the house I bought. He meant the furniture I paid for. He meant the savings account I filled. He thought he was protecting his empire. He did not know his empire was a sandcastle built on a beach that I owned. "Just make sure Mom has the cash for the lab guy," Tyson said. "I will handle Jasmine. I will play the heartbroken victim. I will cry in court. It will be easy." He hung up. I watched him lean against his car and smile. It was the smile of a man who thought he had just won the lottery. I closed the app. I placed the phone face down on the mattress. I waited for the tears. I waited for the heartbreak. I waited for the crushing weight of 10 years of marriage ending in betrayal. But the tears did not come. Instead, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was lightness. It was the feeling of a dead weight being cut loose. I had loved Tyson. I had supported him. I had believed in him when no one else did. I had dimmed my own light so he could shine. I had pretended to be small so he could feel big. And for what? So he could steal my daughter's hair in the middle of the night. So he could plot with his loser brother to leave me destitute. The love did not die slowly. It was executed. It was gone. I sat up in bed. I did not turn on the lamp. I did not need light. I knew exactly where everything was. I reached into the bottom drawer of my nightstand and pulled out a second phone. This was a burner, untraceable, encrypted. I dialed a number. It rang once. Sterling. The voice on the other end was rough with sleep but alert. Sterling never slept when there was money on the line. "Jasmine," he said. "It is 3 a.m. "It is time," I said. My voice was steady. It was cold. It was the voice of the CEO of Obsidian Financial. "Time for what?" "Initiate the hostile takeover protocol," I said. Sterling paused. "You mean the family?" "I mean everything, Sterling. I want you to run a full audit on the Hayes family assets by sunrise. I want every liability, every loan, every lien." I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the driveway where Tyson was currently walking back toward the house. Francine's mortgage on the Buckhead estate. Buy it. Tyson's business loan for the restaurant. Buy it. Dante's car note. Buy it. Sarah's credit card debt. Buy it all. Jasmine. Sterling said, his voice cautious. "This is going to cost millions. You are talking about becoming the sole creditor for your entire family. You will own them." "I know," I said. "That is the point. I do not just want to evict them, Sterling. I want to foreclose on their lives. I want to be the one holding the gavel when the hammer comes down. I watched Tyson open the front door below. He was coming back to bed to lie next to me, to pretend he was my husband. "Do it," I commanded. "Use the shell company. Do not let them see my name on the paperwork until it is too late." "Consider it done," Sterling said. "By noon today, you will own the debt. By tonight, you will own the house." I hung up the phone and hid it back in the drawer. I lay back down and pulled the covers up to my chin. I closed my eyes and slowed my breathing. When Tyson crept back into the room a minute later, I was the picture of a sleeping, peaceful wife. He slid into bed beside me. He was warm. He smelled of the garage and treachery. He kissed my shoulder. "Good night, baby," he whispered. I did not flinch. "Good night," I said in my head. "Goodbye, Tyson. You just made the worst deal of your life, and tomorrow I am going to collect." It was barely 7 in the morning when the invasion began. I was in the kitchen making breakfast for Zara and Elijah when I heard the heavy thud of car doors slamming in the driveway. I looked out the window. A moving truck was backing up to my garage. Not a small van, a full-sized moving truck. Behind it was Dante's flashy sports car, the one I knew was 3 payments behind because I now owned the loan. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door. Tyson was already there, opening it wide with a welcoming grin that made my stomach turn. Dante and Sarah stood on the porch. They looked like refugees from a fashion show. Sarah was wearing oversized sunglasses and clutching a designer dog carrier. Dante was directing the movers. "Hey, fam!" Dante shouted, walking right past me without even a nod. "We are here!" Tyson clapped his brother on the back. "Welcome home, man. Come on in." I stood in the doorway blocking Sarah's path. "What is going on?" I asked. My voice was calm but cold. Sarah pulled down her sunglasses. She looked at me with wide, tragic eyes that held zero sincerity. "Oh, Jasmine, it is a disaster. A total disaster. Our apartment building. A pipe burst on the floor above us. The whole place is flooded. Water everywhere. Mold. It is a health hazard." She shuddered theatrically. "The landlord said it could take months to fix. We had nowhere else to go. Tyson said we could stay here until we get back on our feet. You know, family helping family." I looked at the moving truck. I looked at the dry boxes. I looked at Sarah's pristine white boots that had clearly not stepped in any floodwater. It was a lie. A lazy, obvious lie. I knew for a fact that they had been evicted yesterday afternoon. My audit of their finances showed the eviction notice filed by their landlord for 6 months of unpaid rent. They were not flooded out. They were kicked out. "Tyson did not tell you?" Sarah asked, feigning surprise. "He said it was all arranged." I looked at Tyson. He avoided my gaze, busy helping Dante carry a massive flat-screen TV into my living room. "He forgot to mention it," I said. Sarah pushed past me. "Well, we are here now. Which room is ours? I hope it has an ensuite. I cannot share a bathroom. I need my privacy for my meditation sessions." Tyson guided them upstairs to the guest suite, the one I had just repainted. I watched them go. I watched my husband welcome his mistress and his deadbeat brother into the house I paid for. I did not say a word. I went back to the kitchen and finished making pancakes for my children. I fed them. I got them dressed. I sent them to school. And then I went to work. Or at least I tried to. My home office was my sanctuary. It was a room at the end of the hall, soundproofed and locked. It was where Obsidian Financial operated. It was where I kept the servers, the encrypted hard drives, and the files that could bring down corporations. It was the nerve center of my empire. When I reached the door, it was open. The lock had been picked, a simple credit card trick. I stood in the doorway and felt the blood drain from my face. My sanctuary was gone. My mahogany desk, the one I had imported from Italy, was covered in makeup palettes, ring lights, and tripods. A pink neon sign that read, "Boss Babe," was propped up against my dual monitors. My ergonomic chair was pushed into the corner, piled high with Sarah's clothes. And my files. My confidential, sensitive files. The red-welled folders containing the evidence of the $50 million fraud case I had just closed. The printed spreadsheets detailing the asset seizure of a corrupt senator. They were gone from the desk. I looked down. They were scattered in the hallway, dumped in a haphazard pile on the floor like trash. One of the folders had a footprint on it, a muddy boot print right across the label that read confidential. Sarah was sitting on the edge of the desk adjusting a ring light. She was wearing a tight yoga outfit and full camera-ready makeup. She was holding her phone talking to her followers. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are broadcasting from my new creative studio. The energy in here is just so much better. We are going to talk about manifesting your reality and taking what you deserve. I walked into the room. Sarah, I said. She jumped, dropping her phone. She glared at me. Jasmine, I am live. Do you mind? I am working here. You are in my office, I said. You broke into my office, and you threw my work on the floor. Sarah laughed. She picked up her phone and rolled her eyes at the camera. Guys, you will not believe the negative energy I have to deal with. My sister-in-law is having a moment. She turned to me, covering the microphone. Relax, Jasmine. Tyson said I could use this room. He said it has the best lighting. And honestly, your stuff was just in the way. It is just boring tax papers, right? Who cares? I am building a brand here. I need space to create. Just tax papers. Those papers were worth more than her entire life. Those papers were the reason I could buy this house 10 times over. I turned around and walked out. I did not scream. I did not flip the table. I walked down the stairs to the living room where Tyson and Dante were setting up a video game console on the TV. Tyson, I said. He did not look up from the screen. Yeah, babe. Sarah is in my office. She threw my client files into the hallway. She is using my equipment. Tyson shrugged. Yeah, she asked me about that. Look, Jasmine, be reasonable. You just work from home. You can sit at the kitchen table. You can sit on the couch. You are just doing spreadsheets. It is not like you need a dedicated studio. He paused, mashing buttons on the controller. Sarah is an influencer. She needs a professional backdrop. She needs a quiet space to record her coaching sessions. It is her career, Jasmine. We need to support her. She is going through a tough time with the flood and all. He paused the game and finally looked at me. Do not be selfish. You are barely using that room anyway. Just let her have it for a few weeks. What is the big deal? You are just an accountant. It is not like you are running a Fortune 500 company. Just an accountant. I looked at Dante. He was smirking. He knew Sarah had taken my space. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed seeing the woman who paid his brother's bills being treated like a servant in her own home. You are right, I said. My voice was devoid of emotion. I am just an accountant. I can work from the kitchen. Tyson smiled, satisfied. See? That was not so hard. Thanks for being a team player, babe. He went back to his game. I walked to the hallway. I knelt down and gathered my files. I brushed the dirt off the confidential folder. I stacked them neatly. I carried them to the kitchen. I set up my laptop on the island, the same island where Francine had threatened me. I opened my laptop. They wanted to play games. They wanted to talk about careers. They wanted to talk about digital branding and online presence. Sarah needed the internet to survive. Her entire life, her coaching business, her influence, it all existed in the cloud. She needed bandwidth to stream. She needed speed to upload her videos. She needed connection to manifest her abundance. And I controlled the connection. I did not just pay the internet bill. I owned the network architecture of this house. When we moved in, I had installed a commercial-grade firewall and a managed switch to protect my work. I had administrative access to everything. I logged into the router. I saw the list of connected devices. There were 12 new devices: Sarah's iPhone, Sarah's iPad, Sarah's MacBook Pro, Dante gaming console, Dante phone, the smart TV they were using. They were sucking my bandwidth dry. I selected Sarah's laptop first, the one she was using to stream. I did not block it. Blocking it would be too obvious. She would just complain that the internet was down. Instead, I went to the quality of service settings. I created a new rule. I named it the Life Coach Rule. I throttled her upload speed. I took it down from 1 gigabit per second to 50 kilobits per second. Just enough to stay connected, but not enough to stream video. Not enough to upload a high-resolution photo. Not enough to do anything but load a text-based email very, very slowly. Then I went to her download speed. I added a packet loss simulation, 20% packet loss. It would make every video she tried to watch buffer every 10 seconds. It would make every web page load halfway and then freeze. I applied the same rule to Dante's gaming console. Then I went to the streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus. They were all logged in with my accounts, my passwords. I opened a new tab. I went to Netflix. I went to settings. Sign out of all devices. I changed the password. I did the same for Hulu and HBO and Disney. I sat there sipping my tea, watching the data traffic on my screen plummet. Upstairs I heard a shriek. What the hell? Sarah's voice drifted down the stairs. My stream, it just froze. I heard the sound of her banging on the desk. My desk. Guys, can you hear me? I am lagging. It says poor connection. Downstairs in the living room, Dante threw his controller. Yo, Tyson, the game just lagged out, man. I got killed. The ping is insane. It is like 900. Tyson frowned. That is weird. We have fiber. Jasmine, is the internet working for you? I looked at my screen. My connection was pristine. My download speed was blazing. I looked up at him and blinked innocently. It seems fine to me, I said. I am just loading a spreadsheet, though. Maybe the network is congested. You know, with all the extra devices. Dante groaned. This sucks. Fix it, man. I cannot play like this. Tyson sighed and stood up. I will reset the router. He walked to the utility closet. He unplugged the router. He waited 10 seconds. He plugged it back in. He did not know that the throttling rules were saved in the non-volatile memory. Resetting the power did nothing. The router rebooted. I heard Sarah stomp down the stairs. She was holding her laptop. Tyson, the internet is trash. I just lost 500 viewers. My stream cut out right in the middle of my abundance affirmation. This is costing me money. It is probably just a glitch. Tyson said, fiddling with the cables. It should be back up now. Sarah opened her laptop. She tried to load her page. The loading circle spun and spun and spun. It is still not working, she whined. It is loading like it is dial-up. God, Jasmine, do you not pay for the high-speed package? I looked at her. I pay for the best package available, Sarah. Maybe your computer has a virus. A virus? She scoffed. It is a Mac. Macs do not get viruses. It is your cheap router. She tried to open Netflix to calm down. The login screen appeared. What is this? She asked. It is asking for a password. I changed it, I said, taking a bite of toast. You changed it? Sarah asked, eyes narrowing. Why? Security update, I said. The account was flagged for suspicious activity. Too many users in different locations. I had to reset it. Well, what is the new one? Dante asked, holding out his phone. Put it in. I smiled. It was a polite, professional smile. I am sorry, Dante, but the new subscription tier only allows for 2 screens, and since Tyson and I pay for it, we need those slots. You are kidding me, Sarah snapped. You are going to be stingy about Netflix. We are guests, Jasmine. We are family. We just lost our home. We need entertainment. We need to relax. I typed a few keys on my laptop, executing a command to clear the cache of my own work, making sure it was secure. I understand, I said, but books are free, and I think there are some old DVDs in the basement. You are welcome to use those. Sarah looked at me with pure hatred. You are doing this on purpose, she hissed. You are sabotaging my work. You are jealous of my platform. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had invaded my home, stolen my office, and treated me like dirt. I am just an accountant, Sarah, I said, closing my laptop. I do not know anything about platforms. I just know about numbers. And right now, the numbers say the network is full. I stood up and picked up my stack of files. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to go to the library. Since I do not have an office anymore, I need to find a quiet place to work. I walked past them. I walked past Tyson, who was staring at the router in confusion. I walked past Dante, who was cursing at his TV. I walked past Sarah, who was frantically trying to get a signal on her phone, which I had also throttled. I walked out the front door and got into my car. I did not go to the library. I drove to a coffee shop. I ordered a latte. I opened my laptop. I had work to do. I had to finalize the purchase of the mortgage note for the house they were all sitting in. I logged into the bank portal. The transfer was complete. I was now the bank. I opened a new document. I started drafting a letter, not a foreclosure notice, not yet, a notice of inspection. As the new lien holder, I had the right to inspect the property to ensure it was being maintained. I typed the date. Tomorrow, I would send a surveyor, a real one, and I would tell him to look for everything, every unapproved modification, every code violation. And while he was there, he would also serve them with a notice that the terms of the loan were being enforced strictly. No more grace periods, no more late payments. Tyson was 3 days late on this month's payment. I smiled. They wanted to live in my house. They wanted to use my resources. They wanted to disrespect me. Fine, they could stay. But the rent was about to come due, and the price was going to be higher than they could ever afford. The bass from the living room was vibrating the floorboards of my kitchen. It was Friday night, and my house had been hijacked. When I pulled into the driveway after a 12-hour day at the library, which was actually a 12-hour day at my secret office in Midtown, I found 6 luxury cars blocking my garage. There were leased BMWs and Mercedes with temporary tags. There was a Porsche that looked like it had been in a fender bender. I walked into my own home to find it transformed into a nightclub for the desperate and delusional. Dante had decided that tonight was the official launch party for his new cryptocurrency venture, CoinLux. He had not asked me. He had not asked if he could invite 30 strangers into the home where my children slept. He had simply taken over. My living room furniture, the microfiber sofa Sarah hated so much, had been pushed against the walls. In the center of the room were rented high-top cocktail tables. A DJ was set up in the corner, blasting generic house music. And standing in the middle of it all, holding a glass of my husband's best scotch, was Dante. He was wearing a suit that was too tight and too shiny. He was sweating. He looked like a man who was trying very hard to look rich. Sarah was next to him, wearing a dress that was little more than sequins and string, playing the part of the trophy wife to a man who did not have a pot to piss in. Tyson was there too. He was working the room, shaking hands, acting like the proud older brother. He saw me come in. He did not come over to say hello. He did not ask how my day was. He just pointed at the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen. The counters were covered in empty liquor bottles. They had raided our cabinet. Bottles I had bought for special occasions, bottles Tyson had been saving, were empty. Dante swanned into the kitchen a moment later. He did not say hi. "Yo, Jazz," he shouted over the music. "We are out of ice, and bring out the blue label. The investors are thirsty." He snapped his fingers at me. 2 quick clicks. I stared at his fingers. I wanted to break them. "The blue label is Tyson's," I said. He was saving it for his father's retirement. Tyson appeared in the doorway. He looked annoyed. "Just get it, Jasmine," he hissed. "Do not embarrass me. Dante is closing a deal tonight. These guys are heavy hitters. Be a good hostess and serve the drinks." Serve the drinks? I was the owner of the house. I was the breadwinner. I was the CEO of a forensic accounting firm, and they wanted me to be the waitress. I looked at Tyson. I saw the desperation in his eyes. He needed this to work. He needed Dante to be rich so he could stop borrowing money from us. He believed the lie. "Okay," I said. "I will get the ice." I put on an apron. It was a shield. It made me invisible. To them, the help had no ears. The help had no brain. The help was just a pair of hands to hold a tray. I walked out into the living room carrying a silver tray with fresh ice and the bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label. I circulated through the room. I poured drinks. I smiled a tight, thin smile. And I listened. I listened to the conversations. It was a masterclass in fraud. "Yeah, bro, it is guaranteed." I heard a man in a cheap suit say, "The algorithm uses AI to track micro fluctuations. We are seeing 200% returns monthly." Monthly. That was mathematically impossible. It was a Ponzi scheme, a classic textbook Ponzi scheme. I moved to the next group. Dante was holding court by the fireplace. He was leaning one arm on the mantelpiece, posing. "Welcome to my home, gentlemen." he said, his voice booming. "I bought this place cash last year. Crypto gains. That is the power of coin lux." I froze mid-pour. My home? He was claiming he bought my house, the house I paid for, the house he was currently squatting in. Sarah giggled, clinging to his arm. "It is a little small," she said with a fake modest sigh, "but we like the coziness. We are looking at a bigger estate in Buckhead for the summer." The investors nodded, impressed. They looked around at the clean, modern lines of my living room and saw success. They did not see the eviction notice in Dante's pocket. They did not see the maxed-out credit cards in Sarah's purse. I walked over to them. I held out the tray. Scotch. Dante said, taking a glass without looking at me. "Thanks, Jazz. You can take the empty glasses away now." He treated me like a servant in the house he just claimed to own. I did not move. I stood there holding the tray, my eyes fixed on the man standing opposite Dante. He was older than the other crypto bros. He wore a real suit, not a shiny polyester blend. He had a watch that cost more than Dante's car. He looked skeptical. This was the mark. This was the whale Dante was trying to harpoon. "So, Dante," the man said, his voice gravelly, "the white paper looks interesting. But the liquidity pool seems shallow. You are asking for a $500,000 buy-in. That is a lot of exposure for a coin that has not hit the exchanges yet. What is your collateral? What is the skin in the game?" Dante faltered. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. He looked at Sarah. She smiled nervously. "We have reserves," Dante stammered. "We have significant personal capital invested." The man raised an eyebrow. "Talk is cheap, son. I need to see cash flow. I need to see a commitment. If I put in $500,000, I need to know the founders are not going to rug pull me. I need a sweetener. An immediate liquidity injection to stabilize the initial offering. Say $50,000 in escrow. Tonight." Dante swallowed hard. $50,000. He did not have $50. He looked around the room wildly. His eyes landed on Tyson, who was hovering nearby. Tyson looked panicked. He knew they did not have the money. Then Dante's eyes landed on me. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who just found a life raft. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy and presumptuous. "No problem," Dante said, his confidence returning in a rush. "50,000 is nothing. We can lock that in right now." He gestured to me. "My brother's wife here, Jasmine. She handles the family accounts. She is very liquid." The man looked at me. He looked at my apron. He looked at the tray in my hands. He looked skeptical. "Her?" he asked. Dante laughed. "Do not let the apron fool you. She is our treasurer. She manages the books." He squeezed my shoulder hard, his fingers digging into my collarbone. A silent threat. "Jasmine will handle the $50,000 sweetener. She can wire it to the escrow wallet right now. She is very obedient. She does whatever the family needs." "Right, Jasmine." I felt the blood drain from my face. Obedient. He was pledging my money. He was offering me up as collateral for his scam. I looked at Tyson. Surely he would stop this. Surely he would not let his brother extort his wife in front of strangers. Tyson stepped forward. He nodded vigorously. "Absolutely," Tyson said. "Jasmine, write the check. Or do the wire. Whatever Mr. Vance needs. We are all in on this." He looked at me, his eyes hard. "Do it, Jasmine. Show them we are serious." They were pimping me out financially. They were selling me to save face. They assumed I would do it because I always did it, because I was the mousy accountant who paid the bills, because I was obedient. I looked at the investor. He was waiting. I looked at Dante. He was sweating but smiling arrogant. I looked at Tyson, my husband, the traitor. A switch flipped inside me. It was the final switch, the last breaker in the circuit of my tolerance. It snapped. I did not scream. I did not throw the tray. I smiled. It was the sweetest, warmest, most submissive smile I had ever mustered. "Of course," I said, my voice soft. "I would be happy to help. Family is everything, right?" Dante exhaled. Tyson relaxed. They thought they had won. "I just need to go to the kitchen to get my phone," I said, "to authorize the transfer." "Go ahead," Dante said, waving me away. "Hurry back." I walked into the kitchen. I put the tray down on the counter. I reached into my pocket. My phone had been recording for the last 20 minutes. I pulled it out. I stopped the recording. I opened the app. I played back the last 30 seconds. Dante's voice clear as a bell. We are seeing 200% returns monthly, and then I bought this place cash. And finally, the smoking gun. My brother's wife will handle the $50,000 sweetener. It was fraud. It was misrepresentation of assets. It was solicitation of investment without a license. It was a confession. I opened a new browser window on my phone. I had the page bookmarked. The Securities and Exchange Commission whistleblower portal. I logged in with my verified credentials. Obsidian Financial was a known entity to the SEC. When I submitted a tip, they listened. I filled out the form. Subject Dante Hayes. Entity CoinLux. Violation Ponzi scheme. Material misrepresentation. Unregistered securities offering. I attached the audio file. I attached the photos I had secretly taken of his fake prospectus. I attached the credit report showing his insolvency. I typed a brief note in the comments section. Subject is currently soliciting funds from accredited investors at the residence located at 425 Oak Street. He is claiming ownership of property he does not own and pledging assets he does not possess. Immediate intervention recommended. I hit submit. The screen flashed green. Submission received. I put the phone back in my pocket. I opened the fridge and took out a bottle of sparkling water. I poured myself a glass. I waited. It would not take long. The SEC did not work weekends usually, but for ongoing active fraud with high dollar amounts involving known bad actors, they had a rapid response team. And I knew the agent on duty. I had sent him a text 5 minutes ago telling him to check his inbox. I walked back out into the living room. "Did you do it?" Dante asked, eager. I smiled. "It is processing," I said. "It might take a few minutes to clear. The network is busy." "Perfect," Dante said, turning back to the investor. "See? Money is on the way. Welcome to CoinLux." The investor shook Dante's hand. I stood in the corner and sipped my water. I watched them toast. I watched Tyson pat Dante on the back. I watched Sarah pose for photos. They were celebrating their success. They did not know that the wire I had sent was not money. It was a digital warrant. They did not know that the obedient wife was actually the executioner. 10 minutes later, the music stopped. Not because the DJ turned it off, but because a loud, heavy knock echoed from the front door. It was not a guest. Guests rang the doorbell. This was the knock of authority. Dante frowned. "Who is that?" "More investors." He walked to the door, drink in hand, swaggering. He opened it. I saw the blue windbreakers through the open door. I saw the gold badges hanging from neck chains. "Federal agents," a voice boomed. "Securities and Exchange Commission, we have a warrant." The glass slipped from Dante's hand. It shattered on the floor. The sound of breaking glass was the only sound in the room. Tyson froze. Sarah screamed. I took another sip of my water. The service here was terrible, I thought, but the entertainment was priceless. The sun was barely up when I pulled into the empty parking lot of an old diner on the outskirts of Atlanta. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was a whirlwind of calculations. The raid on Dante the night before had been satisfying, but it was only the opening move. I knew that when you cut off the head of a snake, the body would thrash. I needed to know exactly how they planned to strike back. I saw the gray sedan parked in the far corner. It was nondescript, the kind of car you look at and instantly forget. I parked next to it and unlocked my doors. The passenger door opened, and Mike slid into the seat next to me. He brought with him the smell of stale coffee and rain. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was alert. He was holding a thick manila envelope. It was bulging with paper. "Good morning, Jasmine," he said, his voice rough. "You are not going to like this." I looked at the envelope. "I did not expect to like it, Mike. I expect to use it." He nodded grimly and handed it to me. "I have been doing this for 20 years, Mike said. "I was a detective in Vice. I worked homicide. I have seen some truly evil people do some truly evil things. But your family..." He shook his head and looked out the windshield. "Your family is special. They are not just greedy, Jasmine. They are rotten." I opened the envelope. I pulled out the first stack of papers. It was clipped together with a red tab labeled "The Lab." We tracked Francine's payments. Mike said, pointing to a highlighted line on a bank statement. She did not just pay the clinic fee. She made a direct wire transfer of $5,000 to the personal account of a senior lab technician named Gary Wilson. I looked at the statement. The transfer was dated 2 days ago. I read the printout of an encrypted email thread Mike had intercepted. From Francine Hayes to Gary Wilson. Subject: read the matter. Mr. Wilson, as discussed, the results for the test scheduled for noon must be conclusive. They must show 0% probability of paternity. I do not care what the blood says. I care what the paper says. The balance will be paid upon delivery of the negative result. I felt a cold fire ignite in my stomach. She knew. She absolutely knew that Zara was Tyson's daughter. She had never doubted it. The test was not about truth. It was about erasure. She was willing to falsify medical records to label my daughter a bastard, just to give her son a legal reason to divorce me without paying alimony. She wanted to brand my 7-year-old child with a lie that would follow her for the rest of her life just to save a few dollars. She is a monster, I whispered. Keep reading, Mike said. It gets worse. I turned to the next section. It was labeled Elite Heritage. This was Francine's pride and joy, her charitable foundation. She held galas. She gave speeches about preserving history and uplifting the community. She wore sashes and accepted awards. I looked at the forensic breakdown Mike had compiled. It was a disaster. It was a crime scene. The charity is awash, Mike said. It is a laundromat for Dante. I ran my finger down the ledger. Donations coming in from shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. Companies with names like Red Lion Holdings and Azure Capital. I recognized the structure immediately. It was the same structure Dante used for his crypto scams. He was taking stolen money he had swindled from gullible investors, and donating it to his mother's charity to make it look clean. And then the outflows. 90% of the money that came into Elite Heritage did not go to scholarships. It did not go to historical preservation. It went to consulting fees. Consulting fees paid to TH Management, LLC. I looked at the incorporation documents for TH Management. The registered agent was Tyson Hayes, my husband. Tyson was on the payroll. Dante stole the money. Francine washed the money. And Tyson pocketed the money. He was taking a salary of $10,000 a month from his mother's charity while claiming his restaurant was broke. He was hiding income. He was hiding assets. And he was doing it while asking me to pay for his mother's heart medication. He is complicit, I said. He is not just a bystander. He is an active participant in the money laundering. He is the bag man, Mike corrected. He moves the cash. That is why he needs you to pay the household bills, Jasmine. He cannot use the dirty money for the mortgage or the utilities because it would raise red flags with the IRS. He needs your clean salary to subsidize his criminal lifestyle. I closed the folder on the charity. I had enough to send them all to federal prison for 20 years. Racketeering, wire fraud, tax evasion. It was a slam dunk. But there was one more section in the envelope. It was labeled surveillance. This one felt heavier than the others. This is the hard part. Mike said, his voice softening. I need you to brace yourself. I opened the folder. Photos spilled out. They were high resolution, taken with a long-range lens. They showed a hotel room in downtown Atlanta. The date stamp was from 3 days ago. The first photo showed Sarah walking into the lobby. She was wearing a trench coat and sunglasses. She looked nervous. The second photo showed Tyson meeting her at the elevator. He was not nervous. He was smiling. He leaned in and kissed her neck. The third photo was inside the room, taken through a gap in the curtains. They were entangled. It was explicit. It was undeniable. My husband was sleeping with his brother's wife. I stared at the images. I felt a strange detachment. The pain I expected to feel was absent. The part of me that loved Tyson had died the night he stole Zara's hair. This was just confirmation. This was just data. But then I saw the transcript. Mike had planted a listening device in Tyson's car, the same car I paid the lease on. There was a USB drive taped to the paper. Play audio file 3, Mike said. I plugged the drive into my laptop. I put on my headphones. The sound of the car engine hummed in my ears. Then Sarah's voice, sharp and complaining. "I am tired of waiting, Tyson," she said. "That bitch is still in the house. She is still walking around like she owns the place. When are we going to make the move?" Tyson's voice was soothing. "Calm down, baby. We have to be smart. We cannot just kick her out. The house is in her name too. We need leverage." "What kind of leverage?" Sarah asked. "The DNA test is a good start, but it is not enough to get full custody. I do not want her having visitation rights. I do not want her anywhere near us when we get the payout." "Payout?" I frowned. "What payout?" "We are going to use the nuclear option," Tyson said. His voice dropped lower, conspiratorial. "We are going to frame her, Sarah." "Frame her for what?" "Abuse," Tyson said. My heart stopped. The world stopped spinning. I listened, the blood roaring in my ears. "We are going to call Child Protective Services," Tyson continued. "We are going to tell them she is unstable. We are going to tell them she hits the kids. We are going to say she has a temper that she snaps." "But we need proof," Sarah said. "CPS will not just take our word for it." "That is why you are going to help me," Tyson said. "Tonight, when she is asleep or when she is working in that stupid office of hers, you are going to go into Zara's room." I gripped the steering wheel of my car. "You are going to put some marks on her," Tyson said. "Just a few bruises. On her arms, maybe on her back. Use makeup if you can, but if you have to pinch her, do it. Just make it look real." "No," I whispered. "No." Sarah laughed on the recording. It was a cruel, excited sound. "Oh, that is dark, Tyson. I love it." "Then we take photos," Tyson said. "We document it. We go to the police. We get a restraining order. We get her removed from the house immediately. Once she is out and charged with child abuse, she loses everything. She loses custody. She loses the house. And best of all, I took out a hefty insurance policy on her ability to earn income. If she gets arrested and loses her CPA license, the policy pays out for loss of future earnings. It is a cool $2 million. They were going to hurt my daughter. They were going to physically hurt my 7-year-old child to frame me. They were going to traumatize Zara, terrify her, and use her body as a canvas for their lies just to get an insurance payout. They were not just thieves. They were not just cheaters. They were demons. I ripped the headphones off my ears. I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. They were planning to do it tonight. The recording was from yesterday afternoon. Tyson said tonight. I looked at Mike. My eyes were wild. "Did they do it?" I asked. "Did they touch her?" Mike shook his head quickly. No, Jasmine. Why do you think I am here at 6 a.m.? I have had a team watching the house all night. I have a camera in Zara's room, remember? You authorized it. He pulled up a video feed on his tablet. Here, last night, 2 a.m. I watched the grainy black and white footage. Sarah crept into Zara's room. She was holding a makeup palette. She approached the bed. She reached out for Zara's arm, but then the door opened. It was Elijah, my 10-year-old son. He stood in the doorway holding a baseball bat. He did not say a word. He just stood there watching her. Sarah froze. She looked at Elijah. She looked at the bat. She lowered her hand. She muttered something about checking on the temperature and backed out of the room. Elijah did not move. He pulled a chair over to his sister's bed. He sat down with the bat across his knees, and he watched over her for the rest of the night. I stared at the screen, tears streaming down my face. My son. My brave, beautiful son was protecting his sister from the monsters living in our house because his father wouldn't. That ends today, I said. My voice was shaking, not with sadness, but with a rage so profound it felt like I was burning alive. They are not going to touch my children again. They are not going to spend another night under my roof. I looked at the files. The fraud, the theft, the adultery, the conspiracy. I have enough, I said. I have enough to bury them. Mike nodded. You have enough to put them away for life, Jasmine. What do you want to do? Do you want me to call the police now? We can have them arrested within the hour. No, I said. I wiped the tears from my face. Arresting them now is too easy. It is too private. If they get arrested quietly, they will spin it. Francine will say it is a misunderstanding. Tyson will play the victim. They will use their connections to get bail. I looked at the invitation sitting on my passenger seat, the heavy cardstock embossed with gold lettering, the Elite Heritage Diamond Jubilee, Francine's 60th birthday gala. Tonight. The entire city would be there, her donors, her society friends, the mayor, the press. She wanted a celebration of her legacy. She wanted to show off her perfect family. I am going to give her exactly what she wants, I said. I am going to give her a show. I turned to Mike. I need you to get this evidence formatted. I want the video of Sarah and Tyson. I want the audio of Dante. I want the bank statements showing the money laundering. And I want the DNA test, the real one. I paused. Does the real DNA test exist? Mike nodded. I grabbed the sample from the trash after Tyson stole it. I ran it through an independent lab overnight. He handed me a single sheet of paper. Zara is Tyson's daughter. 99.9% probability. But, Mike said, pointing to the bottom of the page, there is something else. We ran a full panel on Tyson too, just to be thorough. I read the medical footnote. Subject shows genetic markers consistent with secondary infertility due to untreated chlamydia infection dating back approximately 5 years. 5 years. Sarah. He had been sleeping with Sarah for at least 5 years. He had contracted a disease from her, and it had made him sterile. That was why we had not been able to conceive a third child. That was why he blamed me for being barren. It was poetic. It was disgusting. And it was perfect. Format it all, I said. I want a presentation. I want it ready to play on a projector. Mike grinned. You are going to hijack the gala. I'm going to burn it to the ground, I said. I started the car. I have one stop to make before the party. I need to go to the bank. Why? Mike asked. Because, I said, putting the car in gear. If I am going to evict my mother-in-law from her own birthday party, I need to own the building first. I drove out of the parking lot. The sun was fully up now. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day for an execution. The flashing blue lights were the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes. They were cutting through the sheer curtains of my bedroom, painting the walls in a rhythmic, sickening pulse of police blue. The digital clock on the nightstand read 6:02 in the morning. Next to me, the bed was empty. Tyson was gone. Then came the pounding. It was not a knock. It was a fist hammering against the front door with the weight of the law behind it. I did not panic. Panic is for people who do not have a plan. Panic is for people who do not have a server full of incriminating evidence backed up to the cloud. I felt a cold calm settle over me. It was the same icy focus I felt before walking into a boardroom to dismantle a corrupt CEO. I put on my silk robe. I tied the sash tight. I walked down the stairs. Tyson was already in the foyer. He was wearing his sweatpants and a t-shirt, acting the part of the confused, sleepy husband. He looked back at me as I descended the stairs. His eyes were wide with a feigned fear, but I saw the glint of excitement underneath. He looked like a child who had just set fire to an anthill and was waiting to see the ants burn. He opened the door. 2 uniformed police officers stood on the porch. Behind them was a woman in a beige blazer holding a clipboard. She had the tired, hard look of a social worker who had seen too many broken homes. Mrs. Jasmine Hayes. The taller officer asked. I am Jasmine, I said. Ma'am, we received a call regarding the welfare of a minor in this household, the officer said, stepping into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. We have a report of physical abuse against a 7-year-old female, Zara Hayes. My heart rate did not spike. I knew this was coming. I had heard the recording. I had watched the video feed. I knew exactly what they were going to say. But hearing it out loud, hearing the police accuse me of hurting my own daughter, made my blood run cold. Abuse. Tyson gasped. He put a hand to his chest. Officer, what are you talking about? My wife would never hurt our daughter. Who called you? He was good. I had to give him that. He was playing the role of the shocked, supportive husband perfectly. If I did not know he was sleeping with his brother's wife and stealing my money, I might have believed him. The report was filed by a Mrs. Francine Hayes and a Mrs. Sarah Hayes, the social worker said, stepping forward. They claim they witnessed bruising on the child yesterday and that the child expressed fear of her mother. We need to see Zara immediately. Francine and Sarah, of course. They put their names on it. They were so confident, so arrogant, that they did not even bother to make it anonymous. They wanted me to know it was them. They wanted me to know they were coming for me. "She is asleep," I said. "She is 7 years old." "Years. You are going to wake her up and terrify her." "Ma'am, step aside." The officer set his hand resting near his belt. "We have a legal obligation to investigate. If you obstruct us, we will arrest you right now." Tyson grabbed my arm. "Jasmine, let them in. If we have nothing to hide, we should let them see her. Just let them see she is fine." He pulled me back, pretending to comfort me, but his grip was tight. He was restraining me. He wanted to make sure I did not interfere with the show. "Lead the way," the social worker said. We walked up the stairs. The heavy tread of the officer's boots echoed in the silent house. It felt like a funeral procession. We reached Zara's door, the door Elijah had guarded all night. Elijah was gone. He must have gone back to his own room when the sun came up, thinking the danger had passed. He did not know the monsters came in the daylight, too. Tyson pushed the door open. Zara was asleep, curled up in a ball in the center of her bed. She looked so small, so innocent. The morning light was just starting to filter into the room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. "Zara, baby," Tyson said softly, walking over to the bed. "Wake up, sweetie. There are some nice people here who want to say hi." Zara stirred. She rubbed her eyes and sat up. She looked at the police officers standing in her doorway. Her eyes went wide with fear. "Daddy," she whispered. "Mommy." "It is okay, baby," Tyson said, sitting on the edge of the bed. He blocked her view of me. He reached out and gently took her arm, her left arm. The social worker moved in. She pulled a small flashlight from her pocket. "Can I see your arm, sweetie?" she asked. Tyson rolled up the sleeve of Zara's pajama top. There they were. 3 dark, ugly purple marks on her upper arm. They looked like finger marks. They looked like someone had grabbed her hard and shaken her. I stared at the marks. They were masterpieces of makeup artistry. Sarah had done a good job. In the dim light of the bedroom, they looked terrifyingly real. Tyson let out a strangled sob. He recoiled from the marks as if he had been burned. "Oh my God," he cried. "Zara, what happened? Did Mommy do this?" He looked at the officers, his face a mask of horrified realization. "I did not know." He stammered, tears welling up in his eyes. "I swear I did not know. She has a temper, officer. She gets stressed with work. She snaps. But I never thought she would touch the kids." He turned to me. His eyes were accusing. His finger pointed at the bruises he had helped plan. "How could you, Jasmine?" he shouted. "She is just a little girl. Look at what you did to her." The room seemed to shrink. The air was sucked out of it. Zara looked down at her arm, confused. She tried to rub the mark, but Tyson held her hand firm, preventing her from touching it, preventing her from smearing the makeup. "I do not remember," Zara said, her voice small. "I fell on the playground, Daddy." "No, sweetie, you do not have to lie for her anymore," Tyson said, pulling her into a hug, burying her face in his chest so she could not speak, so she could not say that no one had touched her. "Daddy is here. Daddy will protect you." The social worker looked at me. Her eyes were hard. She had seen enough. The bruising was consistent with a grip pattern. The father was protective. The mother was standing there silent and cold. In her mind, the narrative was written. "Mrs. Hayes," the officer said, stepping between me and the bed. "You need to come with us. We are removing you from the premises." "Removing me," I repeated. "This is my house. These are my children." "Not right now, ma'am," the officer said. "Given the evidence and the statements from family members, we have probable cause to believe the child is in immediate danger. The father will retain custody pending a hearing. You need to leave. Now." I looked at Tyson. He was rocking Zara back and forth, putting on a show of fatherly comfort. But over the top of her head, his eyes met mine. There was no sadness in them. There was no shock. There was only triumph. He had done it. He had executed the plan perfectly. He had framed me. He had turned the law into his weapon. I could have screamed. I could have told them to check the cameras. I could have told them to take a wet wipe to her arm, but I did not. Because if I exposed the lie now, they would just arrest Tyson. They would arrest Sarah. It would be a domestic dispute. It would be messy. Francine would distance herself. Dante would claim ignorance. They would scatter like roaches when the light turned on. I needed them all together. I needed them at the gala tonight. I needed them to feel safe enough to walk onto that stage and claim their victory so I could drop the guillotine on all of their necks at once. I needed to lose this battle to win the war. Okay, I said, I will go. I turned and walked out of the room. I did not look back at Zara. If I looked at her, if I saw the fear in her eyes, I would break. And I could not break. I had to be made of stone. I walked down the stairs, the police officer right behind me. Tyson followed us. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs while the officer opened the front door. "Wait, officer." Tyson said, his voice trembling with fake emotion. "Can I just have a moment with my wife? Just 1 second, please." The officer looked at him, then at me. "Make it quick." Tyson walked up to me. He got close. Too close. He invaded my personal space, pushing me back toward the door. He leaned in until his lips were almost touching my ear. He smelled of coffee and betrayal. "See what happens when you try to fight us," he whispered. His voice was not sad anymore. It was a gloating sneer. "You thought you were smart. You thought you could control the money. Now look at you. You are nothing. You are a child abuser." He slipped a piece of paper into the pocket of my robe. "That is a quitclaim deed," he hissed. "Timur. You are going to sign it, Jasmine. You are going to transfer full ownership of the house to me, and you are going to sign over custody. If you do that, I will tell the police it was a misunderstanding. I will tell them you are sick and you need help, not jail. I will make this go away." He pulled back and looked me in the eye. "But if you fight me, Jasmine, I will make sure you never see those kids again. I will bury you. I will take your CPA license. I will take your reputation. I will leave you with nothing but a jail cell." It was the offer, the blackmail, the final squeeze. He thought he had me cornered. He thought I was terrified. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had married, the man I had built a life with. And I smiled. It was a small, cold smile. A smile that did not reach my eyes. "I will see you tonight, Tyson," I said. He frowned, confused. "Tonight? You are not going anywhere tonight, Jasmine. You are going to a motel or a cell. You are done." I did not answer. I turned and walked out the door. The morning air was cool and crisp. The sun was fully risen now, casting long shadows across the lawn. The neighbors were watching from their windows, drawn by the police cars. I walked to the curb. The officer told me I had to leave the property immediately. I did not have my car keys. I did not have my wallet. I was in my robe and slippers. I looked like a broken woman. I looked like a victim. But as the police car drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk, I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the paper Tyson had given me. The quitclaim deed. I tore it in half. Then I tore it in half again. I let the pieces fall to the ground like confetti. I reached into the other pocket of my robe, the one where I kept my burner phone. I dialed Sterling. "They took the bait," I said. "I am out of the house. Tyson just tried to blackmail me." "Good," Sterling said. "The trap is set. Are you okay?" I looked back at my house. I saw Tyson standing in the window watching me. He was smiling. "I am better than okay, Sterling," I said. "I am motivated. Where do you want to go?" "The bank," I said. "I have one last asset to acquire before the party." "What asset?" "Tyson's freedom," I said. I started walking down the street. I did not look back. I had 12 hours until the gala. 12 hours to prepare the evidence. 12 hours to construct the cage. Tyson thought he had won the house. He did not know that by tonight he would be living in a cage of my making. He wanted the deed. I was going to give him the deed, but it would be the deed to his own destruction. I walked toward the main road where a black town car was waiting for me. I had called it 10 minutes ago before the police even knocked. I got in. The driver looked at me in my robe. "Where to, ma'am?" "Obsidian Financial," I said. "And step on it. I have a family to evict." The interrogation room at the precinct smelled of stale coffee and fear. It was a small, windowless box painted a shade of gray that was designed to make you feel hopeless. I sat on a metal chair bolted to the floor. My hands were resting on the cold steel table. I was still wearing my silk robe and my slippers. To the detective sitting across from me, I looked like a woman who had hit rock bottom. I looked like a mother who had snapped. I looked like a suspect. Detective Miller was a heavy man with a stain on his tie and a look of absolute certainty on his face. He had my file open in front of him. He had the photos the social worker had taken of Zara's arm. He had the statement from Tyson. He thought this was an open and shut case. He thought he was staring at a monster. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping to that fake, sympathetic tone cops use when they want a confession. "We know you are under a lot of pressure. Your husband told us about your job. He told us you have been struggling with your mental health. We just want to help you. If you tell us what happened with Zara, we can get you the help you need. You did not mean to hurt her, did you? It was just an accident, right?" I stared at the two-way mirror behind him. I saw my own reflection. My hair was messy. My face was bare, but my eyes were clear. I was not looking at myself. I was looking at the clock on the wall. It was 9 a.m. Sterling was late. I did not answer the detective. I did not ask for water. I did not cry. I just waited. "You are making this harder on yourself, Jasmine," the detective said, his patience wearing thin. "We have the bruising. We have the witness statements. Your mother-in-law is a very respected woman in this community. When Francine Hayes says she saw you being aggressive with your children, people listen. Your husband is heartbroken. He is trying to protect you, but he cannot protect you from this. You are looking at felony child abuse charges. You are looking at losing your children forever. Do you understand that?" I understood perfectly. I understood that Tyson had played his part well. I understood that Francine had called in her favors. I understood that this system was built to crush women like me, women they perceived as weak and unstable. But I also understood that the clock had just ticked past 9:05. And then the door opened. It did not open because the detective called for a break. It opened because someone on the other side did not care about police protocol. Detective Miller spun around in his chair, angry at the interruption. "Excuse me, I am in the middle of an interrogation. You cannot just walk in here." Sterling walked in. He did not walk in alone. He was flanked by 4 associates, all of them wearing bespoke suits that cost more than the detective's annual salary. They carried briefcases that looked like weapons. They moved with the synchronized precision of a military unit. Sterling was in the lead. He looked at the room with a sneer of distaste. He looked at the detective like he was a minor inconvenience. Then he looked at me. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Mr. Sterling," the detective stammered, standing up. He recognized him. Everyone in Atlanta legal circles recognized Sterling. He was the man you called when you wanted to destroy your enemies, not just sue them. "What are you doing here?" "I am here for my client," Sterling said, his voice smooth and cold. "And I am here to stop you from making the biggest mistake of your career, detective." "Your client?" the detective asked, looking at me confused. "This is a child abuse case, Mr. Sterling. She is indigent. Her husband said she files taxes for a living. She cannot afford you." Sterling laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Mrs. Hayes does not file taxes, detective. She owns the firm that audits the companies that file the taxes. She owns Obsidian Financial. And as of this morning, she owns the mortgage on your precinct building because the city bonded it out to a private equity firm that she just acquired controlling interest in." The detective blinked. "What?" "Sit down," Detective Sterling commanded. "And shut up." He placed a silver laptop on the interrogation table. He opened it. He turned the screen so the detective could see it. One of his associates stepped forward and handed the detective a document. "That is a subpoena for the metadata of a Mr. Tyson Hayes and a Mrs. Sarah Hayes," Sterling said. "But you do not need to read it right now. You need to watch this." He pressed play. The video feed from Zara's bedroom filled the screen. It was time-stamped 2 a.m. the previous night. The night vision was crisp. The detective watched. I watched him watch. He saw Sarah creep into the room. He saw the makeup palette in her hand. He saw her pull back the covers. He saw her paint the bruises onto my sleeping daughter's arm. He saw the artistry of the lie. And then he saw Elijah. He saw my son stand up with the baseball bat. He saw Sarah flee. The video ended. The room was silent. The air conditioning hummed, but the detective had stopped breathing. The color drained from his face. He looked from the screen to me and back to the screen. His certainty, his arrogance, it all evaporated. He realized in that second that he had been used. He had been a pawn in Tyson's game. And now he was facing the queen. That, Sterling said, pointing at the screen, is Sarah Hayes, your witness. The woman who claimed she saw my client abuse her child. And that is makeup detective, theatrical grade bruising compound. We found the receipt in her email this morning. He slid another paper across the table. And this, he continued, is a text message thread between Tyson Hayes and Sarah Hayes. In it, they discuss in graphic detail their plan to frame my client for abuse to secure custody and a $2 million insurance payout. They discuss the timing. They discuss the false report. They discuss how easy it would be to fool the police. The detective picked up the paper. His hands were shaking. "Oh my God," he whispered. Sterling leaned in close. "You arrested the wrong person, detective. You dragged an innocent woman out of her home in her bathrobe at 6 a.m, based on the word of 2 conspirators who are currently sleeping together and plotting insurance fraud. You traumatized her children, you violated her civil rights, and you did it all without doing a shred of due diligence." The door opened again. This time it was the police chief. He looked out of breath. He had clearly been sprinted down the hall as soon as he heard Sterling was in the building. Mr. Sterling, the chief, said, wiping sweat from his forehead, "I was just told you were here. I'm sure we can clear this up. There must be a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Chief Sterling said without turning around. "Your detective here was just about to book my client for a crime that was fabricated by her husband. We have video evidence. We have digital trails. We have the DNA proof that the husband has been falsifying medical records." The chief looked at the laptop. He looked at the detective, who was now slumped in his chair, looking like he wanted to disappear. "Uncuff her," the chief barked. "Now!" The detective fumbled for his keys. He rushed over to me. I stood up before he could touch me. "I am not cuffed," I said, my voice icy, "but I am detained. Am I free to go?" "Of course, Mrs. Hayes," the chief said. "We are so sorry. We will launch an immediate internal investigation. We will issue a warrant for Tyson and Sarah Hayes immediately. We will pick them up within the hour." "No." The word hung in the air. Sterling looked at me. The chief looked at me. "No," I repeated. "Do not pick them up. Not yet." The chief frowned. "Ma'am, they committed a felony. They filed a false police report. They conspired to frame you. They are dangerous." "I know what they are," I said. I smoothed the lapel of my silk robe. I looked at the chief with the same authority I used to command a boardroom. "If you arrest them now, it will be a private matter. They will call Francine. She will get them a lawyer. They will post bail. They will spin the story. They will say the video is fake. They will say I hacked their phones. They will drag this out for years in court." I walked over to the mirror. I fixed my hair. I do not want a court battle, Chief. I want justice. And justice needs an audience. "Tonight is Francine Hayes' 60th birthday jubilee," I said, turning back to them. "The Elite Heritage Gala. Everyone will be there. The mayor, the judges, the donors. Tyson and Sarah will be there. They will be celebrating. They think I am in a cell. They think they won." I walked to the table and closed the laptop. I want them to feel safe. I want them to walk onto that stage and smile. I want them to think they got away with it. And then I want to take everything from them in front of the entire world. I looked at Sterling. "Do you have the purchase agreements ready?" Sterling nodded, a shark-like grin spreading across his face. "The ink is dry, Jasmine. You own the debt. You own the building. You own the charity's liabilities. As of 10 minutes ago, you are the landlord of the gala." "Good," I said. I turned to the chief. "I am not pressing charges right now. I am asking you to wait. Give me 12 hours. Tonight at 8 p.m., I want you and your officers at the gala. Wait in the wings. When I give the signal, you come in." The chief hesitated. "This is highly irregular, Mrs. Hayes. We cannot just let suspects walk around." "You let me walk around," I said, my voice sharp. "You let them frame me. You owe me, Chief. And if you do this my way, I will give you the biggest fraud bust this department has seen in a decade. I will hand you a money laundering ring, an insurance fraud scheme, and a conspiracy case wrapped in a bow. Or Sterling can file a civil rights lawsuit against this precinct by noon that will bankrupt the city." The chief looked at Sterling. Sterling just raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Try me." The chief sighed. 8 p.m. But I will have officers watching them all day. If they try to run, we take them. "They will not run," I said. "They are too arrogant to run. They are going to be getting dressed for a party." I walked to the door. The detective shrank back as I passed him. "One more thing, Chief," I said, pausing at the threshold. "Yes, Mrs. Hayes, my husband took my car keys when he kicked me out. I need a ride." The chief nodded. "My driver is outside. Take her wherever she wants to go." I walked out of the interrogation room. I walked through the bullpen where officers stopped typing to stare at the woman in the silk robe, flanked by high-priced lawyers. I did not look down. I held my head high. I walked out into the bright Atlanta morning. The town car was waiting. "Where to?" "Ma'am," the driver asked, holding the door open. "Obsidian Financial," I said. "I have a presentation to finish." I slid into the leather seat. I pulled out my burner phone. I sent one text to Elijah. "Mommy is coming. Be ready." I closed my eyes. The morning was over. The morning was over. The war had begun. And tonight, I was going to wear red. The glass doors of Obsidian Financial slid open with a whisper. I walked onto the 45th floor of the Sovereign Building, not as the battered wife in a silk robe who had just been interrogated by the police, but as the majority shareholder and CEO. My staff did not look at my attire with judgment. They looked at me with reverence because they knew that the woman in the slippers had just closed a $50 million acquisition before breakfast. Sterling was waiting in the conference room. The view behind him stretched all the way to Stone Mountain, but my focus was on the 3 stacks of documents arranged precisely on the black marble table. They looked like ordinary papers. To the untrained eye, they were just legal contracts and bank statements. But to me, they were weapons. They were nuclear warheads. I sat down at the head of the table. I did not ask for coffee. I did not ask for small talk. "Report," I said. Sterling tapped the first stack. "We ran the full forensic audit on Francine Hayes and the Elite Heritage Foundation. It is worse than we thought, Jasmine. She is not just living beyond her means, she is insolvent. The mansion in Buckhead, the one where the gala is being held tonight, is technically in foreclosure status." I frowned. "Foreclosure? But she is still hosting parties. She has been dodging the process servers for 3 months, Sterling explained. "She has been using funds from the charity to pay just enough interest to keep the bank from locking the doors. But she missed the balloon payment last week. The bank is preparing to seize the property on Monday." "Monday," I said. "That is too late. I need to own it today." Sterling smiled. "I knew you would say that. I have the Vice President of Distressed Assets at Atlanta First National on the video link. He is very eager to get this toxic asset off his books." Sterling pressed a button, and a large screen descended from the ceiling. A man in a blue suit appeared. He looked stressed. "Mrs. Hayes," the banker said, "Mr. Sterling tells me you are interested in the note for the property at 450 West Paces Ferry." "I am," I said. "I want to buy the mortgage. I want to buy the full lien. Cash. Today." The banker blinked. "Mom, that note is valued at $3.2 million. The borrower is in default. It is a high-risk asset. I am not buying it for the investment," I said, my voice flat. "I am buying it for the leverage. I will wire the full amount plus a 10% premium for an immediate expedited transfer of the deed of trust. I want the paperwork signed and recorded with the county clerk within the hour." The banker's eyes widened. 10% premium. That was $300,000 just to speed up the paperwork. He did not ask why. Bankers never ask why when cash is on the table. "Done," he said. "We will send the DocuSign immediately." I looked at Sterling. "Next?" Sterling tapped the second stack. "Tyson Hayes. TH Management, and the Sultry Spoon Restaurant Group. I felt a phantom pain in my chest. The restaurant. The dream I had helped him build. The business I had spent nights doing the books for while he was out cheating on me. He cooked the books, Jasmine, Sterling said. He has been reporting profits to you but reporting losses to the IRS, and he took out a secondary business loan 6 months ago, $200,000. He used the restaurant equipment and the lease as collateral. Let me guess, I said. He is in default. He has not made a payment in 4 months, Sterling confirmed. The lender, a private equity firm called Onyx Capital, has already initiated the acceleration clause. They can seize the assets at any time. Call them, I said. Sterling dialed. He put it on speaker. Onyx Capital, a voice answered. This is Sterling representing Obsidian Financial. We are looking to acquire the debt portfolio of Tyson Hayes, account number 4492. There was a pause. We are in the process of collections on that account, the voice said. We are sending a team to seize the kitchen equipment on Tuesday. I leaned toward the phone. This is Jasmine Hayes. I am wiring you the full payoff amount right now, $200,000 plus fees. In exchange, you assign the note and the security interest to my holding company. Why would you do that? The voice asked, suspicious. It is a failing business. Because, I said, I have a sentimental attachment to the kitchen. Do we have a deal? We have a deal. I hung up. I looked at the third stack. It was smaller, thinner. Sarah and Dante, I said. Sterling sighed. This one is just sad. Dante does not have assets to seize. He leases his car. He rents his apartment. He has zero equity in anything. But Sarah, he opened the folder. Sarah has a student loan, a private one, $80,000, and she has a personal line of credit she used to fund her life coaching certification and her wardrobe, another $50,000. The bank sold her debt to a collection agency last week for pennies on the dollar. Buy it, I said. Jasmine, Sterling said gently. It is junk debt. You will never collect on it. She has no money. I do not want her money, Sterling. I want her name. I want to be the one who calls her phone. I want to be the one who freezes her bank account. I want to be the one who garnishes every dime she ever makes for the rest of her life. Buy the debt. Sterling nodded. He typed a few commands on his laptop. It is done. I sat back in my chair. The room was quiet. The air conditioning hummed. I closed my eyes and visualized the web I had just spun. I owned the roof over Francine's head, the very floor where she would be standing tonight when she tried to destroy me. I owned the restaurant where Tyson played the big shot. I owned the ovens. I owned the tables. I owned the liquor license. I owned Sarah's financial future. I was not just their family member anymore. I was not just the woman they hated. I was their landlord. I was their bank. I was their creditor. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my private bank. Transfer complete. $3.2 million sent to Atlanta First National. Transfer complete. $200,000 sent to Onyx Capital. Transfer complete. $13,000 sent to Debt Recovery Solutions. I opened my eyes. It is finished, I said. Not quite, Sterling said. He slid a final single piece of paper across the table. This is the assignment of rights. Once you sign this, Obsidian Financial officially transfers all these debts to you personally, Jasmine Hayes. You will have full legal authority to foreclose, evict, and seize assets at your discretion immediately upon signature. I picked up the pen. It was a heavy fountain pen. The ink was black. I thought about the bruises on Zara's arm. I thought about the way Tyson looked at me when he handed me the quitclaim deed. I thought about Francine calling my daughter a bastard. I signed my name. The ink flowed onto the paper, sealing their fate. Sterling took the paper. He stamped it. He scanned it. Congratulations, he said. You are now the sole owner of the Hayes family empire, or what is left of it. I stood up. I walked to the window. I looked out at the city of Atlanta. Somewhere down there amidst the trees and the traffic, Francine was getting her hair done. Tyson was picking out his tuxedo. Sarah was applying her makeup. They were preparing for a party. They were preparing to celebrate my destruction. They had no idea that they were already dead. They were just ghosts walking around in clothes they did not own, living in houses they did not pay for. I turned back to Sterling. "What time is it?" "It is 4 p.m. "Good," I said. "That gives me 4 hours to get ready." I walked toward the door of the conference room. "Where are you going?" Sterling asked. "I'm going to the spa," I said. "And then I'm going to put on a dress." "What kind of dress?" "A red one," I said, "the color of foreclosure." I left the office. The elevator ride down felt different this time. I was not heavy, I was light. I was floating. I walked out to the town car. The driver opened the door. "To the hotel," I said. I sat back in the seat. I pulled out my burner phone. I sent one last text to Tyson. "See you tonight." He did not reply. He probably laughed when he saw it. He probably showed it to Sarah and they joked about how desperate I was. Let them laugh. I looked at the digital copy of the deed on my phone. Owner Jasmine Hayes. Property address 450 West Paces Ferry. I ran my thumb over the address. Tonight, I was not going to a party as a guest. I was going home, and I had some very unruly tenants to evict. The driveway of the estate at 450 West Paces Ferry was lined with Bentley SUVs and Rolls-Royces. It was a parade of wealth and status that stretched all the way down the block. Valets in white jackets were running back and forth parking cars that cost more than most people earned in a decade. The mansion itself was glowing. Every window was lit up. The massive crystal chandelier in the foyer was visible from the street, sparkling like a diamond. To anyone else, this looked like the height of Atlanta society. It looked like success. It looked like the Hayes family was on top of the world. But I saw it differently. I sat in the back of my town car and I looked at the house. I did not see a mansion. I saw a distressed asset. I saw a property with a $3.2 million lien against it. I saw a foreclosure waiting to happen. I saw my property. I checked my phone one last time. Sterling sent a text. "The team is in position. The projection system is hacked. We are live on your signal." I typed back, "Stand by." The driver opened my door. I stepped out onto the pavement. I was not wearing the silk robe anymore. I was wearing the red dress. It was a floor-length crimson gown with a slit up the leg and a neckline that plunged just enough to be dangerous. It was tailored to perfection. It fit like a second skin. It was the kind of dress you wear when you want everyone in the room to look at you. It was the kind of dress you wear when you are about to spill blood. I walked up the stone steps. The security guard at the door held up a hand. "Name, please," he asked, checking his list. "Jasmine Hayes," I said. He frowned, scanning the list. "I am sorry, ma'am. You are not on the list." I smiled. It was a sharp, razor-thin smile. "I do not need to be on the list," I said. "I own the building." The guard looked confused. He hesitated. But then he looked at my dress. He looked at the diamonds in my ears. He looked at the way I stood there, not asking for permission, but waiting for him to move. He stepped aside. I walked into the foyer. The noise hit me first. The hum of 200 people talking, laughing, and clinking glasses. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roast lamb. A string quartet was playing something classical and boring in the corner. I paused at the top of the short staircase that led down into the grand ballroom. The room was a sea of black tuxedos and glittering gowns. In the center of it all, holding court like a queen, was Francine. She was wearing a silver gown that was too tight and covered in sequins. She looked like a disco ball. She was laughing, throwing her head back, exposing her neck. She was holding a glass of champagne. Next to her was Dante, looking nervous, but trying to hide it. And near the buffet table, I saw them. Tyson and Sarah. They were standing close together, too close. Tyson was whispering something in her ear, and Sarah was giggling. She was wearing a white dress. It was a bold choice. It looked almost bridal. She looked happy. She looked victorious. They looked like a couple. They looked like two people who had successfully framed an innocent woman for child abuse and were celebrating their upcoming insurance payout. I took a breath. I let the cold rage fill my lungs. Then I started to descend the stairs. The click of my heels on the marble was lost in the noise of the party, but the visual impact was instant. A hush started at the back of the room and rippled forward like a wave. People stopped talking, heads turned, eyes widened. "Who is that?" I heard a woman whisper. "Is that the daughter-in-law?" Someone else asked. "I thought she was in jail." The silence reached the front of the room. Francine stopped laughing. She turned slowly, following the gaze of her guests. When she saw me, her glass tilted in her hand, spilling expensive champagne onto the floor. Her eyes bulged. She looked like she was choking. Tyson and Sarah turned around. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Tyson looked like he had been punched in the gut. His face went from flushed and happy to a sickly gray in a heartbeat. I reached the bottom of the stairs. I did not stop. I walked straight toward them. The crowd parted for me. They moved aside, instinctively sensing the danger radiating off me. I stopped 5 feet away from my husband. Tyson recovered first. The shock wore off, replaced by a surge of panic and anger. He looked around quickly, checking to see who was watching. Everyone was watching. Jasmine. He hissed, stepping forward to intercept me. "What the hell are you doing here? You are supposed to be in custody." He grabbed my arm. His grip was hard, painful. He was trying to hurt me. He was trying to scare me. I looked down at his hand on my arm. Then I looked up at his face. "Take your hand off me, Tyson," I said. My voice was not loud, but in the quiet room it carried. "Or I will have security remove you from my property." He laughed, a nervous, jittery laugh. "Your property? You are delusional. You are sick, Jasmine. The police took you away this morning. You are a child abuser. You hit Zara. You are not welcome here." He squeezed harder. "You need to leave right now." He whispered fiercely, "Before you embarrass yourself further. Did you come to beg? Is that it? Did they let you out on bail and you came here to beg my mother for forgiveness?" Sarah stepped up beside him. She linked her arm through his, staking her claim. She looked at me with a sneer. "Look at her dress," she said loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "Red. How trashy. You look like a whore, Jasmine." She looked me up and down. "We know what you did," she said. "We saw the bruises on that poor little girl. You are a monster. You should be in a cage. Why are you here? Do you want money? Is that it? Do you want a handout?" She reached into her small clutch purse. She pulled out a $20 bill. "Here," she said, throwing it at me. It fluttered to the floor, landing on the marble between us. "Go get yourself a taxi to the homeless shelter. That is where you belong." I looked at the money on the floor. I looked at Sarah. She really thought she had won. She really thought I was the poor, desperate accountant who had snapped. She had no idea that I had cloned her phone. She had no idea I had the video of her painting those bruises. She had no idea that I owned the debt on the very dress she was wearing. I smiled. "Keep your money, Sarah," I said. "You are going to need it. I hear the commissary in prison is expensive." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Prison? You are the one going to prison, honey." Tyson told the police everything. He told them how unstable you are. He told them how you threatened the kids. Tyson stepped in front of her, shielding her. "That is enough," he said. "I am calling the police. I am having you arrested for trespassing and violating a restraining order." "There is no restraining order, Tyson," I said, "because the judge threw out your petition an hour ago when my lawyer showed him the evidence." "Evidence," Tyson faltered. "What evidence?" I did not answer. I just looked past him to the stage. Francine had recovered from her shock. She saw the scene unfolding. She saw her guests whispering. She saw her perfect gala turning into a circus. She decided to take control. She marched up the steps to the stage. She grabbed the microphone. The feedback squealed, piercing the air. "Ladies and gentlemen," she boomed, her voice shaking with rage, "please, may I have your attention?" The room went silent again. Tyson and Sarah turned to look at her. I turned too. Francine stood there in the spotlight. She looked old. The heavy makeup could not hide the lines of stress and greed on her face. She glared at me with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. She was going to do it. She was going to execute her plan. She was going to destroy me publicly. We have an uninvited guest tonight," Francine said, gesturing at me with a sweep of her hand. "A woman who has brought nothing but shame and sorrow to this family for 10 years. She paused, letting the crowd absorb her words. "My son Tyson married this woman against my advice. He tried to save her. He tried to give her a good life. He welcomed her into our home. And how did she repay him?" She took a deep breath, summoning fake tears. "She abused his children." A gasp went through the room. "Yes," Francine said, her voice breaking theatrically. "It breaks my heart to say it. But this morning, the police had to remove her from her home because she physically assaulted my 7-year-old granddaughter, Zara." Murmurs of horror. People looked at me with disgust. But that is not the only tragedy. Francine continued gaining momentum. She was feeding off the crowd. She felt powerful. "For years I have suspected that there was something wrong, something deceitful about this woman. My son is a good man, an honest man. He works hard, but somehow despite his success, he has always been burdened." She looked at Tyson with motherly pity. "And now we know why." She reached into her podium and pulled out a piece of paper. It was the fake DNA test, the one she had paid $5,000 for. "We received the results of a genetic test today," Francine announced. "A test we had to conduct because of certain irregularities." She held the paper up. "This woman, Jasmine Hayes, has been lying to my son for 7 years. She has been lying to all of us." Tyson looked down at the floor, acting the part of the devastated husband. Sarah rubbed his back, comforting him. "My granddaughter, Zara," Francine said, her voice rising to a crescendo. "The sweet, innocent child I have loved and supported. She is not a Hayes." The room erupted. "She is the product of an affair," Francine shouted over the noise. "She is a bastard. Jasmine cheated on my son. She got pregnant by another man and she tricked Tyson into raising a child that was not his. She stole his name. She stole his money. And when he started to suspect the truth, she attacked the child to keep her quiet." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are a fraud, Jasmine. You are a liar. And you are an abuser." She looked out at the crowd. "I want everyone here to know the truth. Children from mommy's cheating do not get to call me grandma, and women like you do not get to carry the Hayes name." She looked at security. "Get her out of here. Remove this filth from my sight." The crowd stared at me. Their faces were a mixture of horror and judgment. They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was Francine Hayes. She was the matriarch. And I was just the wife who stood accused. Tyson looked at me. He was smirking. He mouthed the words, "You lose." Sarah was beaming. She looked like she had just won a pageant. I stood there in the center of the ballroom alone. The red dress felt like armor. I did not move toward the door. I did not run. I reached into my clutch. I pulled out a small black remote control. It was the trigger for the projection system. The system Sterling had hacked hours ago. Francine was still panting into the microphone, waiting for security to drag me away. I looked at her. "Are you finished, Francine?" I asked. My voice was not amplified, but in the dead silence, it did not need to be. She blinked, surprised that I was speaking. "You have no right to speak," she spat. "I think I do," I said, "since I paid for the microphone you are holding." I pressed the button on the remote. The lights in the ballroom suddenly dimmed. The massive screen behind the stage, the one that was displaying the logo for Elite Heritage, flickered. The logo disappeared. In its place, a video appeared. It was high definition. It was crisp. It showed a bedroom, my bedroom. The crowd gasped. On the screen, Tyson walked into the frame. He was with Sarah. They were not talking. They were kissing, passionately. Sarah pushed Tyson onto the bed. My bed. The audio kicked in. It was loud. "I cannot wait until she is gone," Sarah's voice boomed through the ballroom speakers. "I am so sick of pretending to be nice to her." "Do not worry, baby," Tyson's voice replied, clear and distinct. "Once we get the custody in the house, she will be on the street. We will have everything." The crowd went dead silent. Francine turned around and looked at the screen. Her jaw dropped. Tyson froze. His smirk vanished. Sarah let out a shriek. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" I pressed the button again. The video changed. It was a document, a bank statement. Elite Heritage Foundation. It showed a wire transfer, $50,000, incoming from a Cayman Islands account linked to Dante Hayes. It showed an outgoing transfer, $10,000, to TH Management, Tyson's shell company. Then an audio clip played. Dante voice. Mom washes the crypto cash through the charity. Tyson takes his cut. We keep it all in the family. Francine grabbed the podium for support. She looked like she was having a heart attack. I pressed the button again. The screen changed to a medical report. DNA paternity test. Subject Zara Hayes. Probability of paternity 99.9%. The crowd murmured, confused. Francine had just said she was a bastard. Then the second page appeared. Subject Tyson Hayes. Diagnosis secondary infertility. Cause untreated chlamydia infection. The text was huge. Everyone could read it. I walked toward the stage. You said Zara was not a Hayes, Francine. I said, my voice rising, filling the room. You paid a lab technician $5,000 to fake that result. We have the emails. We have the bank transfer. I pointed at the screen. Zara is Tyson's daughter. But Tyson. I looked at my husband, who was now cowering behind Sarah. Tyson has been sterile for 5 years because he caught a disease from his mistress, your daughter-in-law, Sarah. The room exploded. The shock was palpable. It was a physical wave. Sarah covered her face with her hands. Tyson looked like he wanted to die. I walked up the stairs to the stage. Francine backed away from me, terrified. I took the microphone from her hand. She did not fight me. She was trembling. I turned to the crowd. My mother-in-law calls this a celebration of heritage, I said. I pointed at the screen where the video of Sarah painting bruises on Zara's arm was now playing on a loop. This is their heritage: lies, theft, abuse, and fraud. I looked at Francine. You wanted to kick me out of the family. You wanted to take my children. You wanted to steal my house. I reached into my purse and pulled out a piece of paper. It was the deed to the mansion. Well, Francine, I have some bad news for you. I held the deed up. I bought your mortgage this morning. I bought Tyson's loans. I bought Sarah's debt. I took a step closer to her. You are not the host of this party, Francine. You are trespassing. I looked at the security guards who were standing confused by the door. Security, I said, my voice commanding. They snapped to attention. I am the owner of this property. These people, I pointed at Francine, Tyson, Sarah, and Dante. These people are squatters. Please remove them from my building, immediately. The room erupted into chaos. The ballroom was vibrating with the echo of Francine's accusation. The words bastard and liar hung heavy in the air, a toxic fog that settled over the crowd. 300 pairs of eyes were fixed on me. They were waiting for me to crumble. They were waiting for the tears of the guilty. Tyson stood next to his mother, his head bowed in a performance of sorrow so practiced it was almost impressive. Sarah clung to his arm, her eyes gleaming with a malicious delight that she could barely suppress. They thought this was the end. They thought they had fired the kill shot. I did not scream. I did not lunge for the microphone that Francine clutched like a scepter. I did not try to defend myself with words. Words were useless against people who breathed lies. I simply raised my right hand, lifting it high enough to catch the light of the chandeliers, and I snapped my fingers. It was a small sound, but it was the signal. High above the ballroom in the glass-walled audio-visual booth, the technician I had hired, a former intelligence officer who now worked for Obsidian Financial, pressed a single key. The massive projection screen behind the stage, which had been displaying a looped golden logo of the Elite Heritage Foundation, suddenly went black. The music cut out. The room plunged into a confused, murmuring darkness. Then the screen flickered to life. It was not a slideshow of happy memories. It was not a tribute to Francine's 60 years. The image was grainy at first, the timestamp in the corner reading October 14th, 7 p.m. Then it sharpened into terrifying 4K clarity. The crowd gasped. It was the interior of my home, my living room, the very sanctuary I had bought and paid for. On the screen, the front door opened. Sarah walked in. She was not wearing the designer clothes she wore tonight. She was wearing a trench coat. She looked around, checking the empty hallway, a look of thrilling guilt on her face. A moment later, Tyson entered the frame. He was supposed to be at the restaurant managing the lunch rush. Instead, he walked up to his brother's wife, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with a hunger he had not shown me in 5 years. The audio boomed through the high-quality speakers of the ballroom, crisp and undeniable. Is she gone? Sarah's voice on the screen was breathless, amplified to a deafening volume. Is the accountant gone? Yeah, she's at the office, Tyson's voice replied, a low, mocking growl. She thinks I'm checking inventory. We have 2 hours before she picks up the kids. God, I hate this house, Sarah said, pulling him toward the stairs. My stairs. It smells like her. It smells like cheap soap. Don't worry, baby, Tyson laughed, lifting her up. Once the paternity test comes back negative, we kick her out. We keep the house. We keep the money. We redo the whole place in Italian leather. Just you and me. The video cut to them walking up the stairs, hands roaming, laughter echoing. In the ballroom, the silence was shattered. A collective, horrified inhale sucked the oxygen out of the room. Sarah let out a high-pitched shriek, her hands flying to her face as if to physically block the image. She stumbled back from Tyson, tripping over the hem of her white, bridal-looking gown. Tyson stood frozen, his face draining of color, until he looked like a wax figure, melting under the heat of the spotlight. Francine turned slowly to look at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. She looked at the video of her son and her daughter-in-law desecrating her other son's marriage, plotting to steal a home she didn't even own. But I wasn't done. The screen went black again for a split second, then a new file loaded. This wasn't video. It was audio. A waveform danced across the screen, pulsing with every syllable. Just wash it through the charity, Mom. The voice was unmistakable. It was Dante. He was standing near the bar holding a drink that was now shaking so violently it spilled over his hand. I don't care where the money came from, Dante Francine's voice replied on the recording. It was the voice of the matriarch, sharp and commanding. I just need to know it's clean before it hits the gala account. If the IRS looks at elite heritage, we are all finished. It's crypto profits, Mom. Untraceable. Dante's voice scoffed. I move it from the investors to the shell company in the Caymans, then donate it to your foundation as the anonymous gift. You pay Tyson his consulting fee. He kicks half back to me in cash, and we use the rest to pay the mortgage on the big house. It's a perfect circle. Jasmine pays the bills we can't hide, and we use the dirty money for the lifestyle. The stupid accountant doesn't suspect a thing. She better not, Francine's recorded voice hissed. If she finds out we're using her salary to cover the laundering fees, she'll cut us off. Keep her busy. Keep her feeling guilty about being a bad mother. Distraction is key. The waveform flatlined. The recording ended. Dante dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound exploding like a gunshot. The donors in the room, the wealthy bankers, the politicians, the socialites who had given thousands to elite heritage were now staring at Francine with expressions of dawning horror. They realized they hadn't been donating to a cause. They had been accessories to a money laundering ring. Francine gripped the podium, her knuckles white. She looked out at the sea of faces that had admired her just minutes ago and saw only judgment and disgust. She tried to speak into the microphone, but her voice was a strangled squeak. Deepfake, she whispered, desperate. It's AI. It's a trick. I signaled the booth again. The screen changed. This time it was a document, a medical document. It was blown up to the size of a billboard, every letter sharp and legible. At the top, the logo of the most prestigious genetic laboratory in the state. Certificate of Paternity. Subject 1, Zara Hayes. Child. Subject 2, Elijah Hayes. Child. Subject 3, Tyson Hayes. Alleged father. Conclusion. The probability of paternity is 99.999%. Tyson Hayes is the biological father of both children. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Francine's accusation of bastard was exposed as a lie in black and white. Tyson stared at the screen, tears of humiliation streaming down his face. He knew they were his. He had always known. The lie was just a tool, a weapon to hurt me, and now that weapon had misfired and blown up in his face. But there was one more document. The text scrolled up. Supplementary medical findings. Confidential patient, Tyson Hayes diagnosis. Secondary acquired infertility, scarring of the epididymis pathology source. Untreated chlamydia, trachomatis infection. Infection date, estimate, approximately 5 years. Prior, cross-reference patient, Sarah Hayes. Infection, match, positive, strain identical. The words hung there glowing in the darkness of the ballroom. Secondary infertility, sexually transmitted disease, Sarah Hayes. The room did not gasp this time. It went dead silent. The kind of silence that happens when a bomb goes off and the sound hasn't caught up to the blast yet. It was the ultimate humiliation. It wasn't just that they were cheaters. It wasn't just that they were thieves. It was that they were dirty. They were physically, medically corrupted by their own betrayal. The reason Tyson and I couldn't have a third child, the reason he had blamed me for years, called me barren, made me feel less than a woman. It wasn't me. It was him. It was the disease he caught from his brother's wife. Sarah let out a wail that sounded like a wounded animal. She fell to her knees, burying her face in her hands, her white dress pooling around her like a shroud of shame. Dante looked at his wife, then at his brother, his face twisting into a mask of realization and revulsion. He lunged at Tyson. "You gave my wife a disease," Dante roared, swinging a wild fist that connected with Tyson's jaw. Tyson stumbled back, tripping over Sarah, and they both went down in a heap of tuxedo and tulle. The crowd finally erupted. It was chaos. People were shouting, pulling out their phones, recording the disintegration of the Hayes dynasty. The pristine image of the elite heritage family was dissolving into a brawl on the ballroom floor. I stood still amidst the madness. I looked at Francine. She was alone on the stage, the screen behind her broadcasting the medical proof of her family's rot. She looked small. She looked withered. Her legacy was not diamonds. Her legacy was chlamydia and fraud. I walked up the stairs to the stage. I moved slowly, deliberately. The crowd parted for me again, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. I stepped up to the podium. Francine backed away from me, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with terror. I did not touch her. I simply reached out and took the microphone from her limp hand. "You wanted to make an announcement, Francine," I said into the mic, my voice calm, cool, and echoing through the chaos. "You wanted to tell everyone about the bloodline, about who gets to be a Hayes." I gestured to the screen, to the medical report, to the video of the affair, to the ledger of the stolen money. "This is your bloodline," I said. "This is your truth." I looked down at Tyson and Sarah, who were trying to scramble to their feet, and at Dante, who was being restrained by security. "You called my daughter a bastard," I said, my voice hardening into steel. "You tried to erase her, but the only thing you erased tonight is your own future." I reached into my purse. I pulled out the deed, the single piece of paper that Sterling had finalized that afternoon. "And speaking of futures," I said, turning to face the crowd, holding the deed up for everyone to see, "I have one final announcement." I looked at Francine, whose back was against the projection screen, trapped by the light of her own destruction. "This party is over," I said, "and so is your lease." I signaled the technician one last time. The screen went black. The house lights slammed on blindingly bright, exposing every flaw, every tear, every drop of sweat in the room. "Get out of my house," I said. "All of you." The ballroom had descended into madness. The guests were scrambling for the exits, trying to distance themselves from the radioactive fallout of the Hayes family scandal. But Francine was not done performing. She looked at the screen where her son's medical records were still glowing in high definition. She looked at the crowd of donors who were now looking at her like she was a criminal. She saw no escape route. So she did what she always did when reality became too inconvenient to handle. She clutched her chest, let out a dramatic wailing moan, and collapsed onto the stage floor in a heap of silver sequins and synthetic hair. It was a performance worthy of daytime television. She lay there perfectly still, waiting for the sympathy to rush in. She was waiting for someone to call for a doctor. She was waiting for the narrative to shift back to her as the victim of a cruel, heartless daughter-in-law. But no one moved to help her. The crowd just watched. They knew a con when they saw one now. Tyson, however, seized the moment. He saw his mother fall, and he saw an opportunity for violence. He looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot wild with the realization that his life was over. He did not see his wife. He saw the architect of his destruction. He saw the woman who had humiliated him, stripped him of his masculinity, and exposed his darkest secrets to the world. "You killed her!" he screamed. His voice was a raw, tearing sound. "You killed my mother!" He lowered his shoulder and charged. He sprinted across the dance floor, jumping over the debris of the fight with Dante. He was coming for my throat. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to silence me forever. I did not flinch. I did not step back. I just watched him come. He got within 3 feet of me before a wall of black muscle materialized out of the chaos. My lead security officer, the one Sterling had handpicked, moved with the speed of a striking cobra. He did not tackle Tyson. He simply stepped into his path and extended a rigid arm. Tyson ran full speed into the guard's forearm. It was like watching a bird fly into a pane of glass. There was a sickening crunch as the air left Tyson's lungs. He bounced off the guard and hit the floor hard. Before he could scramble up, a heavy boot was planted in the center of his chest, pinning him to the marble. "Stay down," the guard said. His voice was calm, bored even. Tyson thrashed, grabbing at the boot, screaming obscenities, but he was pinned. He was helpless. That was when the doors at the back of the room opened again. This time it was not a surprise. It was an invasion. Sterling walked in. He was flanked by 6 uniformed officers from the Atlanta Police Department and 4 agents wearing FBI windbreakers. The room fell into a terrified silence. Even the guests trying to sneak out froze in their tracks. Sterling walked straight to the stage. He stepped over Tyson's writhing body without even looking down. He walked up the stairs to where Francine was lying, playing dead. He stood over her. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Get up, Francine," Sterling said, his voice amplified by the microphone I had left on the podium. "The floor is dirty. And you are wrinkling a dress you can no longer afford." Francine's eyelid twitched. She did not move. "Mrs. Hayes," Sterling said louder. "If you do not stand up in the next 5 seconds, I will have the paramedics transport you to the county hospital as an indigent patient. I have canceled your private health insurance effective 5 p.m. today due to non-payment of premiums." Francine's eyes snapped open. The threat of a public hospital was enough to cure her heart attack instantly. She scrambled to her feet, clutching the podium for support. She glared at Sterling. "Who are you?" she hissed. "Get out of my building." Sterling smiled. It was the smile of a shark who had just tasted blood. "This is not your building, Mrs. Hayes." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a document. It was thick, bound in blue legal paper. He held it up for the room to see. "This is a foreclosure deed," he announced. As of 4 p.m. this afternoon, the mortgage on this property previously held by Atlanta First National was acquired by a private holding company. That company has exercised its right to accelerate the debt due to your 12 months of missed payments and fraudulent financial statements. He turned and pointed at me. "The holding company is Obsidian Financial, and the sole owner of Obsidian Financial is your daughter-in-law, Jasmine Hayes." Francine looked at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at the chandeliers. She looked at the walls. She looked at the floor beneath her feet. "She owns the building, Francine," Sterling said, his voice hammering the final nails into her coffin. "She owns the land. She owns the lights. She owns the very air you are breathing right now. And she has declared this gathering an unauthorized occupation of private property." He checked his watch, a gold Rolex that glinted in the stage lights. "You have exactly 30 minutes to vacate the premises. All of you. Anything left behind after 30 minutes will be considered abandoned property and will be thrown into the street." 30 minutes? Francine shrieked. "My clothes, my jewelry, my antiques. You cannot do this. This is my home." "It was your home," Sterling corrected. "Now it is a crime scene." He nodded to the FBI agents. "Gentlemen, they are all yours." The agents moved in. They did not go for Francine. They went for Dante. Dante was trying to blend into the crowd near the exit. He had taken off his flashy jacket and was trying to look invisible. 2 agents grabbed him by the arms. "Dante Hayes," one agent said, "you are under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and operating an unlicensed securities exchange. We have the server logs from your mother's charity. We have the crypto wallets. We have it all." Dante started to cry, not a dignified, silent cry. He wailed like a toddler. Mom, help me." "Do not let them take me." Francine reached out for him, but an officer blocked her path. "Do not touch him, ma'am. You are next." The Atlanta police officers moved toward Tyson and Sarah. Tyson was still pinned to the floor. The guards stepped back, allowing the police to haul him to his feet. They spun him around and slapped handcuffs on his wrists. "Tyson Hayes," the officer recited. "You are under arrest for filing a false police report conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and child endangerment." Sarah tried to run. She kicked off her heels and bolted toward the kitchen door. She made it 3 steps before a female officer grabbed her by the back of her white dress. The fabric tore with a loud rip, exposing her back. "Get off me!" Sarah screamed, clawing at the officer. "Do you know who I am? I am a brand. I have followers. You cannot arrest me. You are under arrest for conspiracy and child abuse," the officer said, spinning her around and cuffing her. The ballroom was a cacophony of justice. Dante wailing, Sarah screaming, Tyson cursing. And in the center of it all, Francine stood alone on the stage. She looked at her family being dragged away in chains. She looked at her guests staring at her with revulsion. She looked at her empire crumbling into dust. Then she looked at me. "Jasmine," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. "Jasmine, please. We are family. You cannot let them take the house. Where will I go? I am an old woman. I have nowhere." I walked to the base of the stage. I looked up at her. "You have a place, Francine," I said. Sterling stepped forward, handing her a piece of paper. "This is a brochure," he said, "for the Shady Pines State Facility. It is a government-funded nursing home. We have taken the liberty of arranging a bed for you. It is a shared room, but it is warm. The bus leaves in 20 minutes. "A nursing home," she gasped. "A state home, with poor people." "It is what you can afford," I said, "since I seized your bank accounts to pay back the donors you stole from." I turned my back on her. I walked away. I walked through the debris of the party. I walked past the shocked donors who were now realizing they would get their money back thanks to me. I walked past the catering staff who were looking at me with awe. I walked out of the ballroom and into the cool night air. My town car was waiting at the curb. The engine was running. The rear door opened. Mike was sitting there, and next to him, safe and sound, were Elijah and Zara. "Mommy," Zara cried. She jumped out of the car and ran to me. I caught her in my arms. I lifted her up, ignoring the ache in my ribs. I buried my face in her neck, smelling her shampoo, smelling her innocence. "I got you, baby," I whispered. "I got you." Elijah stepped out of the car. He looked at the house. He looked at the police cars flashing their lights. He looked at me. "Is it over?" he asked. I put Zara down and pulled him into a hug. I kissed the top of his head. "Yes," I said. "It is over. We won." We got into the car. The leather seats were soft. The air was quiet. It was a different world from the chaos inside the mansion. Sterling came out of the house a few minutes later. He leaned into the open window. "The police have cleared the building," he said. "Francine is packing a bag. The locksmiths are on their way to change the cylinders. What do you want to do with the property, Jasmine? Do you want to move in? It is a beautiful estate." I looked at the mansion. It was glowing in the moonlight. It was magnificent. It was grand. But all I could see was the rot. All I could smell was the perfume of betrayal and the stench of greed. "No," I said. "I never want to step foot in that house again." "Then what?" Sterling asked. "Sell it," I said. Liquidate it, sell the furniture, sell the art, sell the chandeliers, strip it down to the studs and sell the land to a developer. I do not care if we take a loss. I just want it gone." Sterling nodded. "Consider it done. And the proceeds, put them in a trust," I said, looking at my children. "For Zara and Elijah, so they never have to depend on anyone but themselves." Sterling tapped the roof of the car. "Go home, Jasmine. You did good." The driver put the car in gear. We pulled away from the curb. I watched the mansion disappear in the rearview mirror. I watched the flashing lights fade into the distance. I looked at my children. Zara was already asleep, her head on my shoulder. Elijah was looking out the window, watching the city pass by. I was tired. My body ached. But my heart was light. I was not Jasmine the accountant anymore. I was not the mousy wife. I was not the victim. I was the owner of my own life. I took a deep breath. For the first time in 10 years, the air tasted clean. This story offers a profound lesson on the true nature of power and the definition of family. For years, Jasmine allowed her in-laws to mistake her silence for weakness and her modesty for a lack of ambition. They believed that because she did not flaunt her success, she had none. They treated her as a utility, a resource to be drained, rather than a person to be respected. The fatal error of the Hayes family was assuming that because Jasmine served them, she was beneath them. The narrative powerfully illustrates that true strength does not need to announce itself. It moves in silence. While they were busy performing a facade of wealth and status, Jasmine was quietly building an empire of reality. It teaches us that financial literacy and professional competence are not just career skills, they are weapons of self-defense. In a world that often tries to diminish women, especially those who prioritize service and family, possessing the keys to your own kingdom is the ultimate shield. Furthermore, Jasmine's journey redefines the concept of loyalty. We are often taught that we must endure abuse, disrespect, and betrayal simply because it comes from family. This story shatters that illusion. It proves that family is defined by behavior, not biology or marriage certificates. When those closest to you conspire to harm your children and steal your peace, they forfeit their place in your life. Jasmine shows us that walking away is not enough. Sometimes you must dismantle the structures that enabled their abuse to ensure they can never hurt you again. The ultimate victory was not the revenge itself, but the reclamation of her peace and the protection of her children. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to cut off toxic family members to protect your peace or your children? Share your story in the comments below.